A computer desktop screen opens up with a click sound as the user selects the PowerPoint presentation file titled Daydream New Recruit Orientation. Isn't that the company known for selling hair loss meds with insanely good results? People are going crazy because it makes hair grow like magic. I heard they're a pharma company specializing in skincare and beauty treatments. No matter how hard you try elsewhere, their meds are the only ones that actually work. But that's not all. We provide every medicine you could possibly need. See you at Daydream. And you are the chosen candidates. The presentation hall erupts into loud cheers and applause from the excited candidates after the announcement. It's a familiar name, he mutters to himself as he looks at the presenter on stage. You have all been assigned to the field exploration team. The presenter smiles with a bizarrely wide, unsettling grin, shocking the audience. I've never heard of that team. Me neither. Does a pharmaceutical company really have a team like that? I have to get out of here, someone thinks as they step backward in a sudden panic. What is it? Footsteps echo down the hall as a sudden tension grips the candidates. There will be a short probationary period, the presenter announces as the doors slam shut. Of course, for each individual evaluation, the presenter continues to explain the process. Individual's courage is what matters, the presenter says with an unsettling smile as he snaps his fingers. We will catch every single person trying to ride for free. Is this a blackout? Why did the door close earlier? The candidates murmur in confusion as the lights suddenly go out. A candidate tightly clenches his fists in fear and anxiety as a strange, dizzying sensation takes over. The candidates suddenly wake up inside a subway train, looking around in complete confusion and panic. Dear passengers, thank you for riding with Abyss Transit Corporation today. This train will not be stopping. To ensure a pleasant journey to your final destination, please pay close attention to the following announcements. What is this? A subway? Is this like some high-tech virtual reality simulation? The passengers begin to whisper anxiously among themselves as the train continues its non-stop journey. He looks down in deep thought, trying to piece together the bizarre situation they have been thrown into. Who would have thought that getting a job would lead to this kind of insanity? The screen displays the recruitment poster for Daydream Company's first half-open recruitment, promising a dreamlike workplace where miracles come true. He stares blankly at his employee ID badge, realizing he has been officially assigned to the mysterious field exploration team and a death survival game. This stop is Sorrow, the distorted voice of the conductor echoes through the speakers. Sorrow Station. A heavy, tense step is taken inside the silent subway car as someone begins to move forward. I have entered a ghost story, he realizes as he stands amidst the flickering, spectral figures of other passengers. A long, exhausting commute. I feel especially tired today. I was inside the train. It looked like a normal commute, but wait, where am I? He stares intensely at the train window, which only displays distorted static and flickering digital noise. It looks like the company plans to use this ghost story to filter out the new recruits. The distorted speaker crackles with static as it repeats, "This stop is Sorrow Station. Please disembark according to the instructions in the announcement. The screen doors are opening." Can't we get off here? The candidates ask as they peer out of the opening doors. The announcement said they'll be closing soon. Shouldn't we hurry and leave? Damn it. Everything looks normal except for that weird station name, another candidate says with a nervous laugh. You just heard them say that this is Sorrow Station. There's no station like that in Korea. No, I mean, that's true, but are you going to take responsibility if we miss out by staying in here? Excuse me? Maybe we should wait and observe the situation a bit longer. A sudden shockwave of realization strikes the candidates as an ominous presence fills the air. Hey, the doors are closing, someone yells in a panic as candidates desperately run toward the closing subway doors. Just get off for now. A candidate grunts in pain as the heavy sliding doors slam shut, trapping him inside the train car. He mutters, staring through the glass window at the candidates left behind on the platform, who smile unsettlingly and wave goodbye. A loud thud echoes through the car as a panicked candidate bangs against the sealed doors while the rest of the passengers look on in tense silence. For fuck's sake, it's all because of you, someone mutters in anger and frustration, pointing the blame as the reality of their confinement sets in. He tries to use his brains to plan an escape, but the looming uncertainty of the situation weighs heavily on his mind. It was their choice, they'll figure it out, a candidate says dismissively as they walk away down the subway platform, leaving the hesitant ones behind. See, I told you we should have gotten off when I said so. They're just going to sit there hesitating until they end up in tears later, one of them boasts, completely unaware of the liquid dripping above the station sign labeled Sorrow. Don't you agree? A distorted voice whispers as thick black fluid suddenly drips from above, splashing heavily onto a candidate's head. A terrifying silhouette appears amidst a sudden rush of red light, signaling the onset of a horrific event. Huh? What is that? A candidate gasps in sheer terror as the red-lit subway car becomes a scene of pure nightmare. Panic erupts as passengers scream and run for their lives. Hike! Hyrack! The ceiling! Something is coming from the ceiling! Red, blood-like fluid begins pouring down rapidly, with a warning echoing, something is dripping from the ceiling. Help me! A candidate screams in tears as the mysterious, flesh-like red substance drips onto his face from above. The air is filled with the agonizing, distorted screams of those caught in the horrific downpour inside the station. A dark, terrifying silence follows the gruesome screams, leaving only the sound of blood dripping. Back inside the subway car, he closes his eyes, trying to block out the horrifying sounds of the candidates who stayed behind on the platform. A distorted, colorful screen flickering with static reflects the sheer chaos and madness of the ghost story they are trapped in. Bathed in an eerie, dim red light, the remaining passengers sit in tense silence, fully realizing that those who left the train have met a grim fate. Outside on the platform, thick black liquid violently splashes and covers the station doors as the nightmare consumes everything left behind. An ominous message appears on the screen. The train is departing. The haunting reality of their situation becomes clear. The darkness enveloping them is made of ghost stories. Employees of Daydream Co. Ltd. are dispatched into these ghost stories to carry out their missions. A colorful, cartoonish illustration ironically explains. The automated announcement chimes, the train is now departing from Sorrow Station. To ensure a pleasant trip to your destination, panic and disbelief spread among the passengers inside the car. What do we do now? Did someone really just die? One might think of a classic novel scenario, transmigrating into a world you love, holding an absolute information advantage, and hogging all the future opportunities and items like a typical overpowered protagonist. How great would it be if I could be that? He wonders. There is just one problem, he realizes as he stares ahead. Clenching his hands tightly together, he confronts a very crucial issue. I can't stand scary things, damn it! He screams internally as the anxious thoughts and silent sobs of his fellow passengers swirl around him. He recalls his extreme cowardice. Even when reading the wiki, if there was a scary background or BGM, I'd hide everything but the text. I even clicked not interested on all WeTube ghost stories just because the thumbnails scare me. When I submitted my own ghost stories, I couldn't even include a single image. He sits in deep contemplation, completely terrified of the bizarre entity lurking just behind his perception. He tries to rationalize his fear, feeling completely out of place in a survival game meant for brave explorers. Even among my friends, he remembers. He covers his face in complete despair, wishing he could just wake up from this nightmare. The train car remains tense, with the remaining candidates traumatized and weeping. A display shows current survivors in this car. A stark number 8 appears on the screen, indicating that only 8 survivors remain in their car. The title screen of the story appears. Even if I fall into a ghost story, I still have to go to work. The mechanical announcement continues. The doors are on your right. Grudge Station this time, he thinks wearily, reading the name of the next stop as the train slows down. I understand you're feeling really overwhelmed right now, but please know that help is available. You can connect with people who care and want to support you by calling 988 anytime. There's hope for things to get better. Suddenly, a bright holographic notification pops up in front of him. First Prize Darkness Exploration Records Real Goods Box? He blinks in surprise, staring at the word real glowing in the air. Am I the only one who can see this? He wonders as a small notebook floats in front of him, glowing with light. Nearby, passengers try to comfort a weeping, traumatized girl. Take your time getting up. Are you okay? Bright, glowing sheets of paper materialize out of thin air before him, folding and collapsing together. A circular plastic accessory with a yellow X symbol, a grip talk, floats down toward his hand. A grip talk? He thinks in confusion, catching the strange reward in his hand. He examines the shining phone accessory closely, wondering how this random real-world item is supposed to help him survive. A glitchy black screen flashes with the text, "A few hours ago. Welcome, O explorer of the darkness." A sinister red light and dark handprints coat the glass, reflecting the anxious faces of those who have entered. This is a department store, but the entrance is covered in warning tape and creepy bloody handprints. One of the girls cries out, "This is so annoying!" while her friend asks, "Surprised?" In reality, it is just a pop-up store themed after the popular online series It's the Apocalypse Prophecy Darkness Exploration Records. A young man wearing a dark hood and a black cap stands amidst the bustling crowd of fans, looking back over his shoulder. Darkness Exploration Records is an online ghost story universe themed around exploring various supernatural phenomena called darkness, and here is a fan who is completely obsessed with this universe, holding a shopping basket packed with limited edition merchandise. As he goes to check out his basket of goods, the clerk smiles and says, "Yes, thank you." Nearby, other customers whisper suspiciously, is he a reseller?" Feeling self-conscious in his business suit hidden under his hoodie, he nervously adjusts his cap, thinking to himself, "I even took a day off work for this." He glances at the grand prize roulette machine, but because of the roulette event, I just couldn't bring myself to participate, all because of my social dignity as an office worker. Suddenly, a bubbly staff member pops out and urges him, "The roulette event ends today. Would you like to participate?" The man hesitates, realizing, if I don't do it now, giving in, he quietly replies, "Yes." The staff member excitedly guides him, "Step right up," as the man internally thanks the kind employee for giving him the push he needed. Handing over the remote, the staff member explains each slot has a prize tier, so press the button to stop it whenever you like. As the wheel spins rapidly, he tells himself, "Was the 7th prize a notepad? I'll just take that and go home." But with a sharp click, the pointer lands dead center on the first prize. He stops dead in his tracks, staring blankly at the screen in utter disbelief as he mutters, "Huh?" The staff members erupt in wild celebration, clapping enthusiastically for the incredibly lucky customer who just hit the jackpot. He holds the sleek black prize box, which is adorned with the mysterious eye emblem of the series, wondering, is this for real? The staff member congratulates him warmly and begins to explain the special nature of the first prize reward. "My name is Kim Solium," he introduces himself as the scene shifts to the next part of his bizarre experience. An automated machine hums a cheerful tune as it begins to print a customized accessory right before his eyes. With a soft click, a freshly minted plastic card slides out of the machine. He picks it up and stares in confusion. An employee ID card? The badge officially lists him as an employee of Daydream Co. Ltd's Field Exploration Team. "Wow, Daydream Co. Ltd!" The staff member cheers, clapping his hands, while Solium can only offer a silent, deadpan stare. "Of course I know about it," Solium thinks. "It's the classic trope of a mega-corporation that monetizes ghost stories in this fictional world." Though because of that, a lot of the famous characters in the story were part of this field exploration team. With a bright smile, the staff member hands over the prize box, completing the checkout for the lucky winner. But a chilling, dark voice whispers a single terrifying word: liar. A cold sweat runs down Solium's face as an ominous, heavy tension suddenly grips the store. The colorful store environment violently distorts as thick black liquid splashes everywhere, revealing a terrifying, shadowy entity with a glowing, malicious grin. Then, suddenly, a wave of dizziness hits him, and his vision begins to blur and warp into static. He feels himself slipping away as the world spins rapidly out of control. "And when I opened my eyes again, I was in the lecture hall," Solium recalls, tightly clenching the yellow X-grip talk in his hand. Now trapped in the actual ghost story, he sits on the train. The system explains Memorial Grip Talk, an F-class item from the Darkness Exploration Records. When attached to a smartphone, it visualizes the user's memories into clear text on a page. Without hesitation, he presses the Grip Talk firmly onto the back of his sleek black smartphone. With a brilliant flash of light, the mysterious device activates, catching him completely off guard. His phone screen lights up to display the full database entry for their current scenario, a D-grade ghost story titled "Welcome to Abyss Transit Corporation," detailing the exact rules of the anomaly. A sudden shockwave of clarity hits Solium as he realizes the sheer power of the item in his hands. The fragments of the Darkness Exploration Records I barely remembered are now appearing perfectly on my phone screen, he thinks in amazement. The world of the Darkness Exploration Records I've ended up in is a massive collection of hundreds of ghost stories written by countless people. Not only is it hard to recall all those ghost stories on the spot, but I also have to figure out how to survive on my own. It's impossible to come up with the right answers instantly. With this, he realizes, a new spark of hope igniting in his eyes as he stares down at the screen. Solium taps the screen. What I need to find right now is a previous escape record. He desperately searches the database files for any notes on how past survivors made it out alive. "I've got it," he breathes a sigh of relief as the screen finally displays the crucial key to survival. With the survival guide now in his possession, Solium carefully plans his next moves in silent determination. The train begins to slow down as a mechanical announcement chimes. This is Grudge Station. In the background, the passengers begin to whisper in sheer terror. Solium looks around the train car, his expression turning grim. The problem is, the remaining survivors are completely traumatized, weeping and trembling on their seats as they await their fate. Grudge station? Like a grudge someone holds? One passenger stammers in absolute terror, his hands shaking violently as he tries to process the bizarre station name. Solium contemplates his options. How do I convince these people to get off at the right station? Staring at the heavy metal doors, he reminds himself, I need to get as many people as possible to leave with me. But will they actually believe me and follow my lead? Of course not, he realizes, knowing how incredibly difficult it will be to earn their trust in a state of pure panic. Solium looks down thoughtfully, sweating as he realizes the difficulty of his situation. Do feel a bit that way, but he thinks to himself. Trapped against a blazing red background, Solium realizes the high stakes of their predicament. He tells himself, I can't get off by myself. A nightmarish vision shows a subway station corridor completely overrun and covered with giant staring eyeballs. Visualizing the horrors of an upside-down subway station, Solium panics in a chibi-style illustration, worrying there is a 90% chance he will faint and fail to escape. Steadying his resolve, Solium prepares to take a step forward under the watchful gaze of the warning signs. Standing tall in the tense subway car, Solium is determined to convince the other passengers and find a way to escape together. Solium strategizes, noting that blabbing about supernatural phenomena or the darkness right off the bat would be incredibly stupid. He takes a firm, decisive step forward, his foot landing solidly on the train car floor. Recognizing that people have a herd mentality, Solium plans to convince just one or two people first, knowing the rest will easily follow. Solium suddenly freezes in his tracks as he overhears a nearby passenger sighing in confusion. Solium's eye widens in pure shock as he hears a passenger say that the situation is not like some WeTube ghost story. A dramatic starburst panel flashes with the excited realization that he has found a potential target to convince. A brown-haired woman in a business suit nervously stares at her phone, sighing with anxiety as a creepy shadow looms outside her window. The woman gasps and opens her eyes wide in surprise as someone suddenly approaches her. Solium sits down next to the woman and asks her to repeat what she just said. She nervously explains that she sometimes watches ghost stories on WeTube, and this situation simply reminded her of them. Solium suggests sharing information given the unusual situation, but she clarifies that it just literally feels like a ghost story to her. She describes how the lecture hall suddenly turned into a subway, and how people suddenly began to disappear and die. She looks down in absolute despair and trembles as she remembers the horrifying deaths, while a disturbing face watches from the window behind her. Solium watches silently as the woman clutches her neck, looking extremely nauseous from the stress. Solium expresses his mutual dread, admitting that he also cannot think straight with such absurd things happening around them. Sitting quietly with a chibi sticker of the traumatized woman next to him, Solium internally admits that he wants to throw up too. The woman smiles weakly and jokes that he only says that because he hasn't seen her faint while being level-headed yet. Their conversation is interrupted as someone hesitantly approaches them and speaks up. A handsome brown-haired young man with green eyes smiles warmly and asks if he can sit next to them. Leaning in close, the handsome young man points at Solium's Daydream co-ID card and asks where he got it. The young man extends his hand with a friendly smile, introducing himself as Sahan. Solium's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as he repeats the name Baek Sahan in his mind. The dramatic burst panel highlights the realization that Baek Sahan is a famous named character from the original story. Solium pulls up the character wiki page on his phone, confirming Baek Sahan is a legendary Daydream co-section chief with over 100 successful explorations. Solium stares in awe at Baek Sahan, who smiles back in mild confusion at the intense reaction. The brown-haired woman gladly shakes Seon's hand and introduces herself as Youngin, a name Solium does not recognize from the database. Solium realizes that unnamed characters in this universe either resolved their ghost stories quickly and resigned or met a gruesome early death. He reflects that some named employees only used code names, but their personalities were distinct enough that he would have recognized them immediately. Solium clenches his hand over his knee in frustration, swearing internally as he realizes the dangerous reality they are facing. Clasping Sehan's hand, Solium introduces himself with a serious and determined expression. The train loudly rattles along the tracks as a dark silhouette glides past the pitch-black subway window. An overhead shot of the train car shows the passengers splitting into anxious whispering groups while they converse. Solium sits with Youngin and agrees that a clear division is forming among the trapped survivors. The mechanical announcement chimes that the next stop is Rapture Station, prompting the passengers to look up in shock as a massive towering building comes into view. Solium looks out the window, briefly wondering if they should get off, before quickly dismissing the idea with a stern look. A grim, abstract textured background emphasizes that selecting the correct station to escape is not simple. Solemn recalls that the theme of the station names changes every single time, making it impossible to escape by simply guessing the correct word. Bold text on a radial background reveals Solium's strategy, but we can look for patterns. A past memory silhouette shows survivors running past a subway sign reading blue. A close-up of a subway sign for Cochlea Station, written in multiple languages. A dark textured transition frame represents a shift in time and space as the scenario unfolds. A blood-splattered scene confirms an escape attempt failed tragically at Cochlea Station. Silhouetted survivors look up anxiously at a series of massive hanging lanterns displaying the year 2026. Gruesome, blood-stained floor reveals another tragic failed escape attempt at 2026 station. Silhouetted survivors look up at a colossal, terrifying eye staring down at them from the darkness. Solium analyzes the records, thinking that looking at all the cases up to case 56, the vibe of a station's name has absolutely nothing to do with the actual escape rate. Looking out at Rapture Station, Solium is shocked by how clean the platform is, wondering why it looks as pristine as a brand new station in a planned city. Solium's anxiety grows as he realizes his survival depends heavily on the number of people with him and his own mental state if he has to witness their horrific deaths. Moving quickly, Solium extends his arm to block the passengers from exiting the train, urgently calling out to them to wait. Showing his determination, Solium stands firm in front of the doors, blocking the path with a serious look in his eyes. A female passenger questions Solium, asking if he is absolutely sure that the station is safe. Solemn explains that most of them can agree that this entire situation feels like a terrifying ghost story. Young uncovers her mouth in shock as Solemn asks if she has ever seen things end well for someone who just relied on luck and instinct. Solemn addresses the passengers, asking if they are really going to risk their lives so easily on an unknown platform. A passenger demands to know if Solium has come up with a brilliant deduction, complaining that he has only said frustrating things so far. When asked if this is a game show or if someone gave him a hint, Solium calmly responds with a simple yes. Pointing upward with determination, Solium declares that their hint is the announcement itself. The passengers stare back at Solemn in complete disbelief and confusion. A mechanical warning screen alerts the passengers to listen carefully to the announcement for a comfortable journey to their final destination. Solium remains focused, knowing that their best strategy is to closely follow and focus on the announcement. The system announcement states that passengers whose final destination is Rapture Station must disembark according to the instructions. Solemn turns to the remaining passengers, asking if anyone among them has Rapture Station as their final destination. As the announcement declares that living a happy life is the purpose of existence, Solium pointedly asks if any passenger truly belongs at Rapture Station. A passenger hesitantly stammers, trying to find an excuse. Brown-haired female passenger angrily shouts at Solium, accusing him of interfering too much and asking if he will take responsibility if they fail to escape. Solium looks down in silent tension, refusing to argue back. Walking away, Solium internally notes that he was planning on escaping with them from the beginning anyway. Solium thinks to himself that now no one will blame him or get mad at him for stopping them from getting off the train. Suddenly, a passenger points out the window, shouting for everyone to look. The passenger yells in panic that the people in the front car of the train have decided to get off. Solium winces in anticipation, thinking that he really does not want to face the grim reality of what is about to happen. Solium looks on with dread as he realizes he has to watch the tragedy unfold as the passengers run onto the gold-glowing platform. A passenger steps onto the platform, only to feel his shoe immediately sinking into a sticky, glowing golden substance. The passenger screams in absolute agony as his body begins to ignite, realizing with horror that the substance is melting gold. A female passenger wails in terror as her lower body completely melts into the golden liquid. The passengers melt into the pool of molten gold, screaming desperately for help as they are dissolved. A horrifying silhouette shows a passenger sinking into the bright golden liquid, completely consumed by the gold. The golden pool erupts, splashing violently against the side of the train as the victims vanish. A close-up reveals a passenger's terrified eye as they are completely submerged and dissolved in the golden liquid. Solium, Young-un, and the other survivors watch from behind the train glass in absolute silence and horror. A terrified passenger grabs Solium's collar, crying out that Solium promised to take responsibility. Trembling with fear, the passenger begs Solium for a guarantee that he will find them a safe place to escape. Sweating profusely, Solium says yes, while internally admitting that his legs are shaking so much that it is the only answer he can manage. Baek Sa-han smiles warmly and praises Solium, calling him amazing, which catches Solium completely off guard. Sahon scratches his head with a bright, easygoing smile, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. San asks if they're really getting off at the next stop so suddenly. Solium decides to keep a close eye on Baek Sa-hyun, knowing the legendary explorer's presence is key to their survival. The three of them sit down together on the subway train benches, waiting for the doors to close. A voice suddenly screams out from the end of the carriage, alerting everyone to the car ahead. The passengers panic as a violent fight breaks out in the next car, torn between wanting to intervene and following the announcement to remain seated. Solium closes his eyes, whispering that it is already too late as the screams from the adjacent car grow louder. The next car is suddenly engulfed in a blinding red light as blood-curdling screams echo through the train. The windows of the adjacent car are completely splattered with blood as a horrific slaughter takes place inside. A crimson screen displays a dark announcement box, calmly informing the survivors that it is now safe to stand up. A mechanical voice inside the train coldly states, "Thank you very much for your cooperation." Pandemonium immediately erupts in the train car as passengers panic, crying out in terror and begging to be let out after witnessing the horrific slaughter. Solemn realizes with deep dread that the system's announcements truly are their only lifeline, even if the reality of surviving is terrifyingly grim. Sweating from the pressure, Solium tries to calm his nerves, telling himself to focus entirely on finding a way to persuade and guide the remaining survivors. Suddenly, another wave of panic washes over the passengers as the mechanical chime rings out once again. Bold, ominous notification flashes on the screen. There is a lost property. Solemn's eyes widen as he instantly recognizes this scenario from the miscellaneous survival records. He recalls that this specific event provides a guaranteed ticket to escape, provided they can secure the required item. Solemn focuses intently as the system begins describing the first detail of the missing item, a 20-something. The announcement continues, revealing the gruesome details: Type A adult male's left eyeball. A text box confirms the horrific requirement to the survivors. The lost property is the left eyeball of a Type A male in his 20s. The passengers look across the bloody divider in absolute shock as the system instructs them to disembark and deliver the lost property to the station staff. Solium analyzes the situation, recognizing that this is indeed one of the rare escape cases recorded in the miscellaneous logs. The database reveals that finding and delivering the requested item acts as a guaranteed escape ticket from the endless nightmare. The exploration logs state that any passenger who disembarks with the announced lost property will be allowed to safely escape the station. Survivors whisper among themselves in disbelief, questioning the bizarre and gruesome requirement of an adult male's left eyeball. Solium ponders whether Type A refers to blood type, wondering if he should just keep quiet and let the scenario play out on its own. He reflects that if only one person escapes first, it will inevitably ruin the group's dynamic and spark deadly internal conflicts. A young male passenger hesitantly stands up, raising his hand to draw the group's attention. The passengers quickly begin questioning each other's age and blood types, desperately trying to see if anyone fits the description. When asked about his own details, Solemn calmly responds that his blood type is AB, ruling himself out of the running. The young passenger who stood up eagerly tries to confirm every single detail of the announcement. He focuses intently, realizing that the horrifying requirements of the announcement might apply directly to him. A dark warning screen announces their fast-approaching destination, Anger Station. Baek Sa-hyun turns around, a sinister and knowing smile spreading across his face as his eyes glow with a cold crimson light. The system announcement chimes again. The doors are on your... Sa-hyun walks up to the young male passenger, asking with a polite smile if he is indeed Type A. The mechanical voice echoes through the carriage. This stop is Anger Station. Seihan smiles warmly as he casually slips his phone into his pocket, his expression shifting into something deeply unsettling. Pointing out that it's a real shame, Seihyun raises his hand as the young passenger looks up in sudden confusion and terror. In a flash of brutal violence, Seihyun lunges forward, violently stabbing and gouging the young man's left eye. The young passenger screams in agonizing pain as blood violently splatters across the carriage. Sa-hyun maintains a calm, almost pleasant expression despite the horrific act he is committing. With a sickening thud, Sa-hyun tosses the screaming, bleeding passenger onto the floor of the train. A female passenger shrieks in pure horror, demanding to know why he would suddenly attack the man and grab his eyeball. Seihan stands calmly by the door, entirely unfazed by the pool of blood and the terrified screams of the onlookers. He smiles coldly at the group, explaining that the announcement clearly said they could all escape if they just gave up an eye. Sa-hyun mockingly asks why they're all standing around like idiots when they have a direct ticket to escape right in front of them. The system announcement repeats its instructions to deliver the lost property to the station staff. Sa-hyun thinks to himself that he shouldn't expect much from weaklings who refuse to take control of their own survival. A close-up reveals Sehan's sharp, terrifyingly beautiful features as he stares down the remaining survivors. Young-un stands up in absolute horror, pointing trembling fingers at Sehan while Solium watches silently. Solium realizes that this ruthless, pragmatic behavior is exactly why Baek Sahon earned his legendary nickname, the Viper. Solium recalls the database description of Baek Sahon, realizing his seemingly innocent rookie persona was just a mask for a terrifyingly efficient survivor. The records detail how Se-hyun will gladly disable any potential competitors to ensure he is the only one who can claim the escape item. Solium sighs internally, knowing that Se-hyun's brutal methods weren't even necessary to solve this particular puzzle. Reaching down, a hand slides open a metal ventilation grate beneath the passenger seats. Tucked away inside the hidden compartment is a small, sealed glass specimen vial. Solium holds up the vial, which contains a perfectly preserved eyeball labeled right, female, age 27, blood type A, RH. Solium explains that the lost property announcement is actually a hidden treasure hunt, and that the required items are already hidden throughout the train car if one knows where to look. Solium looks at Baek Sahon, thinking, I shouldn't blame him for trying to escape on his own, but this is crossing the line. Baek Sahon stands by the train doors, holding up the specimen jar containing a perfectly preserved eyeball. A close-up reveals the preserved eyeball floating inside the glass specimen vial. A close-up shows a passenger's wide, terrified eyes looking at the horrific sight. Solium looks on in shock, whispering, an eye? As a glitchy announcement begins to play. The announcement screen glitters red, stating, the staff will assist you. Baek Sahon walks out onto the empty station platform under flickering red and blue lights. The screen updates, the lost property has been successfully delivered to the station staff. Inside the train, passengers murmur in disbelief. Did you hear that? No one feels sorry for Baek Sahon. Young-in talks to Solium in the quiet subway carriage. She looks down and says, but I transferred majors and never took the exam. I'm just a fraud. While Solium internally notes that getting into medical school is still impressive. The other passengers suddenly turn their attention to them with surprised expressions. Young-in looks at Solium nervously, asking, is this a bit overwhelming? She bows her head and says, I'm sorry. She continues in a quiet voice, I've been thinking things over on my own. Young-in looks up with a sad, nervous smile, sweating under the immense pressure. She explains, since the end of life is death, I wondered if we should get off if a similar word comes up. Looking down at their feet, she adds, but I didn't say anything because that felt like we'd just be dying. Young-in nervously scratches her cheek, trying to offer a small, reassuring smile. She looks up directly at Solium with an earnest and hopeful gaze. Solium smiles back at her warmly, trying to put her at ease. Solium smiles gently, closing his eyes as a sense of calm washes over him. The overhead train display flashes, next peace station, while Solium thinks, by definition, a purpose or destination is a goal to achieve or a direction to head toward. Solium's narration continues over a shot of the train's ceiling. The theme of this train is highly intuitive. Take a seat or find the lost property. As long as you follow instructions, your safety is guaranteed. Ominous memories of the passengers dying on the platform flash, with the text, even those who got off at the wrong stations paid the price in a very direct way. Light floods the subway tunnel ahead as Solium thinks the destination this train refers to. A memory of Blue Station is shown. At Blue Station, it was people who didn't have blue items. Another memory displays the serial killer station. At the station with the serial killer's name, most people escaped, because none of them were serial killers. A close-up of Solium's sharp, thinking eyes as he completes his brilliant deduction. The train speakers chime, announcing, this stop is Peace Station. Solium confidently steps forward, declaring, this is our stop, catching Young-un completely off guard. Solium looks back at her with a calm, reassuring smile. A panel shows various passengers expressing different feelings, as Solium notes. Everyone feels emotions as they go through life. Although there are individual differences, most of us experience joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure. So finding an emotion that none of us have is no easy task. Solium looks on with a steady, quiet resolve, ready to face whatever lies ahead. A blood-stained screen displays the words, especially in a situation like this. Solium reaches out his hand to help up the injured passenger who was blinded in his left eye. The group of survivors walks together down the train car, with the injured man saying, thank you, Solium. Solium leads the group forward, internally noting, since I took the lead, everyone is following me. Solium's face is filled with intense focus as they stand in front of the exit doors. Solium braces himself for the next challenge, thinking, there's no turning back now. The train doors slide open to reveal peaceful station, but the entire platform is completely drenched and splattered in a terrifying sea of blood. Chibi versions of the survivors look absolutely pale and petrified with shock at the horrific sight. Chibi thought bubbles pop up in panic. Blood? A sea of blood? And this is the right way, right? Out of all places, why here? Solium holds his wrist nervously, breaking out into a cold sweat as he thinks, how do I convince them to get off? No, I don't even want to get off. Someone please convince me. Young-un raises her hand confidently, breaking the tense silence by shouting, I think getting off here is the right choice. She looks back at Solium and says, and you've stayed calm this whole time, even when everyone else was terrified, while Solium sweat drops, wondering if he really looked calm. Young-un's speech bubble continues. Unlike some people who threw a fit just to save themselves, a dark silhouette of Baek Sahan grinning sinisterly is shown, as Young-un adds, you weren't like that. With complete trust and determination, Young-un declares, I'd rather listen to a good person. Showing absolute faith in Solium's guidance, Young-un steps out of the train doors and onto the blood-splattered platform of Peaceful Station. She shouts back to everyone still safe inside the train, assuring them that this is indeed the right way and urging them all to get off at the station. Solium looks on in silent disbelief, sweat dripping down his face. The passenger who lost his left eye smiles back at Solium with a look of immense gratitude. Solium looks away with a slight sweat drop, internally admitting that he was actually just too scared to get off, while the injured passenger softly responds, okay. Solium leads the group of passengers forward, thinking to himself that if they all get off here, they will be safe, while reminding everyone to just focus on the feeling of going up. The passengers step forward, their shoes splashing into the pools of thick crimson blood covering the floor as they exit the train. An overhead rusty, grimy metal sign points the way forward with the word exit glowing in a dim yellow hue. Suddenly, bright lights flash as a loud voice booms, wow, congratulations, new recruits, startling Solium and the others. A dramatic close-up shows Solium's eyes wide with shock and confusion as a cold sweat drips down his cheek. Solium begins to count the survivors present in the room, ticking off 1, 2, 3, 4 as he looks at their nervous faces. He continues counting, his eyes narrowing as he whispers, 5. Young-un cheers in relief and excitement as Solium finishes the count, exclaiming, 6, 7, we survived! The 7 survivors sit together in chairs under the dim lights of an auditorium, realizing with a wave of relief that they have actually made it out alive. On stage, a smiling man in a sleek suit holds a microphone, enthusiastically declaring, that is a truly remarkable record. He gestures to a banner that reads, probationary period completed, and exclaims, unless they completely messed up the difficulty level, you guys are an elite class. Looking out over the small, silent audience, the presenter wonders aloud what the HR team will think. Observing the presenter's energetic speech, Solium notes that no one in the crowd is reacting, while the presenter asks, then shall we name the top elite among you? A bright spotlight suddenly shines down on Baek Sahan, who sits calmly and silently in his chair. The presenter praises Baek Sahan's swift judgment, saying he would do great in their department, while Solium thinks to himself that the presenter must be from a different department, nervously wondering if this is actually for real. The presenter happily hands a gift bag to Baek Sahan, joking that even though everyone else gets one too, it's not just for the top graduate. Meanwhile, Solium watches with a sour expression, thinking to himself that he is not happy about this at all. A close-up shows hands carefully pulling open the ribbon of the gift bag. The presenter leans in close to Solium with a chilling smile, whispering, take a good look inside it, leaving Solium completely stunned. The presenter speaks into the microphone with a wide grin, announcing, now, next is Baek Sahan. The presenter turns his attention to the next survivor, a weary-looking female passenger, saying, now then, next is... A male passenger sits hunched over in his seat, desperately clutching his black gift bag to his chest with a deeply unnerved smile. Solium sits silently next to Baek Sahan, wondering if these people were the ones who had been trapped in the ghost story the longest, realizing that the flow of time must have been different for each train. The presenter smiles brightly into the microphone, asking the survivors if they have all received their gifts, and concluding, with this, a bright spotlight shines down on a white banner written in Korean, celebrating the completion of their probationary period. From the back of the auditorium, the view shows the survivors seated in spaced-out chairs facing the lone presenter on the elevated stage. The presenter casually remarks that there is always someone who hitches a ride on others, as a female passenger sits nervously in her chair. With a terrifying, wide grin that stretches across his face, the presenter's eyes gleam as he declares, fairness comes first. An artistic transition panel shows abstract silhouettes of the characters as colorful, glitchy, liquid-like smoke swirls around them. The colorful, distorted energy swirls over the remaining survivors as they sit silently in their auditorium seats. Solium looks upward with a sweat drop, his face illuminated by a strange, otherworldly glow. A sharp black screen with a central exclamation burst displays a sudden shock. Young-un gasps in absolute horror, covering her mouth as she looks around the room, while a digital sign flashes the word "Welcome," and the screen text reads, "With your excellent results." Another screen updates with a sinister message, "You have earned positions as permanent employees." In a horrifying turn of events, several chairs are left empty except for the melted, gooey remains of the survivors' clothes, dripping onto the seats. Trembling with absolute terror, a survivor raises a hand and begs the presenter, "I want to resign. Please let me resign." To which the presenter responds with a simple, "Huh?" The presenter's face drops into a cold, menacing stare as he questions, "Resign from such a great job? Why don't you hear about our—" Young-un desperately yells, asking if they can resign safely, as the presenter replies, "Of course, you can resign without any." With a sickening, wide grin, the presenter continues, "Though, of course, you might change your mind after hearing about them." A close-up of Solium's sharp, determined eyes is shown as the ominous text reads, "The whip has passed." And now, a close-up shows the top cork of a glass vial filled with glowing, cosmic energy. The glowing vial is filled with a sparkling, swirling nebula of blue, purple, and white light. The bottom of the glass vial glows with a soft, ethereal light against a glitchy, static background. A large, stylized blue and black OK is painted across a stark white background. The presenter enthusiastically explains that their company is highly successful in the pharmaceutical industry and has even created a cure for hair loss with their incredibly advanced technology. The glowing vial is displayed in full, labeled as a medicine that grants any wish. It's the wish ticket. The presenter walks toward the edge of the stage, gesturing down at the table and saying, "Since the slides may be difficult to follow, I'll demonstrate it instead." A cork pops off a glass vial filled with glowing, swirling cosmic energy. Sitting nervously in their seats, the survivors whisper among themselves, wondering if everything they're hearing could possibly be a lie. Smiling ecstatically on stage, the presenter proudly declares, "This is the power of the wish ticket." As the survivors stare in complete shock, the presenter adds that the wish ticket can even reverse aging. Presentation screen displays a message explaining that their department, the field exploration team, always receives excellent performance evaluations. The screen reveals that the field exploration team tends to get their wish tickets twice as fast as other teams, with the 10 fastest recipients all belonging to this department. The presenter passionately continues, explaining that as members of the field exploration team, they have a better chance of receiving a wish ticket than anyone else. In reality, it's all just a clever bit of wordplay designed to deceive them. The grim reality is that there are probably far more line-of-duty fatalities in this department than actual recipients of the wish ticket. Baek Sahan watches silently, calmly noting to himself that it isn't actually a scam. He reasons that someone in the company definitely received a wish ticket at some point. A heavy silence fills the room, the silence of profound agitation. The long-haired survivor raises his hand nervously and asks, "Can a wish ticket bring the dead back to life?" He waits with bated breath, his face filled with desperate hope and anxiety. The presenter laughs dramatically, preparing to say that such a thing should be impossible. But when it comes to the wish ticket, the survivors look on with intense focus as they hang on his every word. Standing before a screen labeled choice, the presenter tells them that if they wish to decline the offer, they can leave right now. But if they decide to stay and work hard? Solium peers down at his gift bag and realizes what lies inside, thinking, a mask? Ah. He silently reaches into the bag to pull out the item. As he lifts out a sleek black mask, a small business card falls out, bearing the words, "If needed, 010-0153-24865. Staring at the card, Solium wonders if this was what the presenter wanted them to look at closely, deciding to inspect it more thoroughly later. A distorted, glitchy screen displays the words Darkness Exploration Records, Daydream Co. Ltd. Department. This is the official symbol of Daydream Co. Ltd.'s field exploration team. Solium admits to himself that he desperately wants to decline the offer and run away, imagining himself happily waving goodbye to everyone. However, in a city where dangerous darkness phenomena are scattered everywhere, a coward like him stands absolutely no chance of survival on his own. Resigning would simply mean dying a meaningless death as an extra in some terrifying ghost story. If he wants to live, he has to take a risk and grab onto the only lifeline available. Slowly, the other survivors begin to accept their fate as they prepare to put on their masks. Salim holds up his mask, noting that despite the horrors they have witnessed, not a single person is choosing to run away. As a new recruit puts on the mask, its shape changes in a process called customization, transforming into a unique design that perfectly matches the wearer's personality. Salim wonders what kind of form his mask will take. He is stunned to find that his mask is transformed, sprouting long, dark, branch-like antlers from either side of his head. Young-un looks over at Salim in surprise, her eyes scanning his unique new appearance. With a bright ta-da, Young-un cheerfully puts on her own mask, which she has customized into a white design with large, curved ram horns. The screen updates to announce that their employment is officially confirmed, marking the end of their probationary period. The newly hired employees stand together, their customized masks reflecting their unique personalities. A system notification pops up, confirming that permission to use new items from the Real Goods box has been unlocked. Salim's eyes widen slightly behind his mask as he reads the message about the newly unlocked goods. Watching the glowing document float before him, he decides to check the details later once he safely returns home. As the presenter moves on to explain other employee welfare benefits, Salim suddenly pauses in thought. Looks around blankly, suddenly realizing a major detail and wondering if he even has a home to go back to in this strange world. Young-un smiles brightly, seemingly relieved that they made it through. Salim turns around and presses the elevator button to head out. Young-un follows close behind, pulling her suitcase along as they walk toward the elevator doors. Salim frantically scrolls through his phone, only to realize in horror that even his family's contact information has completely vanished. He stands frozen in shock as the reality of his situation sinks in. Recalling the presenter's slide about company housing support, Salim decides he has no choice but to make the absolute most of this welfare benefit. And that is exactly how he ended up applying for and receiving company housing. He tries to stay optimistic, happily noting that the housing is conveniently located near the subway station. Young-un cheerfully notes, 7 out of 13 of us applied for company housing, prompting Salim to think in surprise, more than half? Walking up to the door of apartment 1206, Salim cynically realizes that the housing is located near the office to work them to the bone 24/7. Opening the door of apartment 1206 with a soft creak, Salim looks inside to see light spilling from the kitchen, where a man is sitting alone in the dark. Salim locks eyes with his new roommate, Baek Sahan, who is wearing a white patch over his left eye. Staring at the seated man, Salim realizes in quiet shock that his roommate is indeed Baek Sahan. Recalling the presentation, Salim remembers the survivors asking if the wish ticket can bring the dead back to life, and if they could simply wish for more wishes. Baek Sahan sits in uncomfortable, heavy silence, staring intently at his phone screen. Salim stands silently near the doorway, matching Sahyon's quiet, tense energy. Staring at his roommate's face, Salim notes to himself that the company seems to have successfully taken care of Sahon's injured eye. Deciding to avoid any awkward conversation, Salim thinks, "First, I'll just head to my room," when Sahan suddenly calls out, "Hey!" Salim looks back to see Sahyun staring at him with a cold, menacing glare, asking, "Hey!" Sahan sits back and looks at Salim with a sweat drop, his annoyance clearly visible. Sahan drops his gaze and questions coldly, "Was it really that fun watching someone's eye get gouged out?" To which Salim offers no immediate response. Rather than backing down, Salim quietly walks over and stands directly over Sahyun, who looks up with a perplexed expression. With a sudden, forceful move, Salim steps in close and leans over Sahyun, confidently responding, "Yeah." A terrifying, wide grin stretches across Salim's face as he declares, "It was pretty fun." Leaning down until they are practically face-to-face, Salim whispers, "Is this what they call a dopamine rush? I enjoyed it thanks to you, so thank you. In fact, I'd love it if we could work together." Salim continues with a menacing smile, saying, "Then I'd get to see something like that again," leaving Sahan completely speechless. Clenching his hands tightly, Salim reflects on how long it has been since he last witnessed such an entertaining show. Slipping into a bright, fake smile, Salim casually puts his arm around Sanyeon's shoulder, adding, "So my work life stays entertaining," as Sanyeon looks on with pure irritation. A dark red, glitchy transition screen signals a tense shift in the atmosphere. Salim smoothly turns on his heel and walks away toward his room with a swift step. Looking back with a calm, analytical expression, Salim thinks to himself that acting like a total psycho should keep his roommate from messing with him. A stylized graphic presents Baek Sahon as a haloed saint flipping a pixelated middle finger, labeled "They're called creative problem clients." A small winged angel with a giant purple eyeball for a head blows a trumpet under the text, "Quick-witted." Salim steps into his clean, modern room, noting the sleek, minimalist layout, shelves, and stairs leading down to a glass floor window. Exhausted from the day's events, Solium collapses flat on his back on the bed, staring blankly up at the ceiling. Looking around the beautifully furnished space, Solium is impressed to find a private bathroom and a weekly deep cleaning service, all for just 100,000 won. On the desk, Solium spots a regular cleaning service door hanger alongside a sleek official welcome box labeled "The Files, the Official Archives." An energetic splash screen displays a sudden wave of realization. This is truly... A cartoon orange fox playfully dumps a box of carrots over Solium's head to celebrate Daydream's insane welfare benefits, though Solium suspects the company is just trying to minimize the recruit's chances of running away. Solium smiles warmly to himself, feeling a sense of relief and comfort in his new personal space. Suddenly, a white spiral-bound notebook floats into the air with a bright blue exclamation mark, catching Solium off guard. Solium reaches out and carefully presses the spiral binding of the floating notebook with his finger. A small plastic package containing yellow smiley face stickers slides out from the notebook, prompting Solium to think, "This is?" A close-up reveals a package of yellow smiley stickers labeled with happy, colorful Korean text. A stark red X is painted across the static-laden sticker package as the text explains, because of its power, they were all discarded. Slipping a yellow smiley sticker into his pocket, Solium reads the system log debating the ethics of placing stickers on employees and thinks this might be the only sticker left in existence. Rubbing his forehead in exhaustion, Solium lets out a tired sigh as the mysterious notebook hovers before him. A delicate vase filled with beautiful white baby's breath flowers glows softly as the text reads, "And that night." Getting ready to sleep in his dark bedroom, Solium pulls up the blanket and thinks to himself, "I start work next week." Solium finally closes his eyes, trying to get some peaceful rest before his first official day of work. Unfortunately, his sleep is plagued by terrifying, distorted nightmares, causing him to sweat and groan in pain. A dark, swirling vortex pattern fills his mind as painful sounds of arg, ugh, and groan echo through his nightmare. The bright morning sun shines down on the tall, modern glass facade of the Baekildong corporate building. Youngun gasps in surprise and worry as she spots Solium approaching the building. Solium looks incredibly drained, sporting dark, heavy eye bags as Youngyeon asks him in concern, "Did you not sleep well?" Walking side by side, Solium admits, "A little, yeah, I'm okay," while Young-eun sighs in sympathy, knowing he suffered from nightmares all weekend. Standing in front of a door marked with the ominous number 13, Solium peers at it and thinks, "Somehow, even the number feels like it's predicting my future." Looking down a long, quiet corridor lined with office doors labeled with single letters, Solium steeled himself as he thinks, "My assigned team is..." Solium looks at his phone screen showing his new recruit assignment to Team D as he reaches out to press the button, wondering to himself, "Is it here?" Inside a clean and modern office, Assistant Manager Eun Ha-jae sits with her arms crossed while Chief Park Min-sung stands beside her, having an earnest conversation. Spotting Solium, Chief Park Min-sung turns around with a bright, welcoming smile and cheerfully says, "You're here, you're here." Solium bows deeply to show his respect as Chief Park Min-sung welcomes him with open, enthusiastic arms, while Eun Ha-jae looks on. Official introduction boxes appear to present Team D Chief Park Min-sung, who is smiling warmly with an outstretched hand, and Team D Assistant Manager Eun Ha-jae, who maintains a cool, serious expression. Solium is relieved to think that they don't seem to haze new recruits, but his comfort is instantly shattered when Eun Ha-jae casually adds, "By the way, they call us Team D because all the new recruits die." The scene shifts back to a wide shot of the tall Baekildong corporate building where a cute dragon mascot holds up a peace sign under the warning, "No resignation allowed, to be continued." On Solium's phone screen, an advertisement for a weekly deep cleaning service is displayed, offering complete room, bathroom, and bedding cleaning for 100,000 won a month. Sweating nervously as he stands before his new seniors, Solium thinks to himself in shock, is it okay to call it that so openly? Eun Ha-jae gives a smug, slightly menacing grin as she looks at him and says, "Welcome to Team D." Chief Park Min-sung looks at Solium with a warm, comforting gaze, placing his hand gently over his chest. In a chibi-style transition, Eun Ha-jae blithely comments, "Of course, you might die before that," prompting a sweat-dropping Park Min-sung to yell back in panic, "Hey, senior!" Lost in his thoughts, Solium envisions a dark, turbulent ocean of urban legends and ghost stories, cynicism taking over as he realizes that regardless of what job he takes, he will always find himself caught up in terrifying situations. Chief Park Min-sung's chibi face peers over a bulletin board full of eerie drawings and says, "Right, I'm curious. Let's hear you brag a bit." To which Solium's chibi face simply responds, "I just did my best." Chief Park Min-sung gestures warmly toward a comfortable sofa, telling So-liam to make himself at home for now, as So-liam politely bows and replies, "Yes, thank you." Hello, this is the live traffic forecast. Suddenly, a retro radio sitting on the table begins to glow red and play static, catching So-liam completely off guard as he wonders, the radio turned on by itself? The glitchy screen updates to display, bringing you real-time weather and traffic reports for Seoul. While the audio cheerfully broadcasts that clear skies have continued since morning and traffic conditions are peaceful, the actual visuals reveal pouring rain, gridlocked traffic, and furious drivers shouting, "Learn how to drive," and "You didn't use your blinker." The broadcast glitches heavily as the text announces that starting this afternoon, a weather forecast that does not match reality at all has begun to play. So-liam stands quietly, looking down at the retro radio with a highly analytical and serious expression. A close-up shows the vintage radio buzzing with colorful digital artifacts and static against a pitch-black background. A simple speech bubble appears over a background of colorful static, asking, "Did you notice?" Chief Park Min-sung holds a tablet with a nervous sweat drop, while Eun-hajae stands behind him, tapping her chin as she observes So-liam's reaction. The radio continues to sit quietly on the desk as a bubble announces, "It's a Twilight-ranked darkness." So-liam says absolutely nothing, staring back at them with a completely blank, silent expression. Chief Park Min-sung quickly steps in to hand a sleek digital tablet to So-liam, announcing with a smile, "For a new recruit like you, we've prepared this." A bright blue glitchy screen flickers with white static text spelling out "MN," representing loud radio interference. An educational corporate video starts playing, featuring cartoon characters of an orange fox and a yellow dragon in traditional hanbok welcoming them. "Welcome to the Daydream Co. Ltd. Field Exploration Team." In the video, two cartoon office workers look up with bright curiosity as a bubble asks, "What kind of company is Daydream Co. Ltd.?" Colorful magic potions and pills swirl against a starry blue backdrop as the narrator boasts, "We make every medicine you need, literally a magic company that creates magical medicines." Cute fox and dragon look down over a miniature toy-like city as the text explains, "Urban legends are coming to life right in our neighborhoods." An illustration of a white electric fan is displayed under the text, "A fan that kills you if left running in a sealed room," and unmarked. An illustration of a red face mask is displayed with the warning, "Red mask $8.99 under maintenance full." A brilliant winged golden emblem glows as the text reads, "Besides these, oh so scary urban legends appear. Daydream Co. Ltd. manages these many urban legends, harvests dream stuff." A sparkling pink liquid fills a glass beaker under the text, "From them," and uses it to make magical medicines that grant wishes. Yes, we do. Chibi Yang Yang and the Orange Fox discuss the process, explaining that dream stuff is the single most important resource of Daydream Co. Ltd. and that they have wonderful people who collect it. A tiny, bald chibi agent wearing black sunglasses dives heroically through a massive explosion of fireworks under the text, "Our wonderful field survey team." Two chibi agents in sunglasses strike heroic action poses in front of a giant fiery explosion and colorful fireworks. The chibi team stands proudly together as bubbles declare, "Behold, the brave and wise field exploration team in action," to celebrate containment of dangerous phenomena. Large yellow speech bubbles float across a sparkling sky, declaring, "A magical ingredient that can only be obtained from supernatural phenomena. Your mission is to collect dream stuff." So-liam stares at the screen with an incredibly cynical and unimpressed gaze, thinking, did they swap ghost stories for urban legends to make it sound less scary? They used softer words to make it look cute, but a syringe filled with glowing purple dream stuff is displayed on a dark background under the text, "Dream stuff is the main ingredient harvested from ghost stories." A white bottle cap and two pills fall slowly through a dark space filled with a mysterious red mist. So-liam calmly lowers his gaze and quietly nods in agreement, saying, "Yes." Chief Park Min-sung smiles back in relief, happy to see that the new recruit is cooperating. Chief Park's chibi form whispers to So-liam, "Even if I do, I'll probably just be treated as a regular otaku instead of a ghost story otaku," while two confused, sweat-dropping agents look on in the background. Chief Park Min-sung stands up to conclude the brief orientation, saying, "All right, now that you've skimmed the manual." Chief Park Min-sung smiles warmly at So-liam to encourage him, while Eun-hajae stands silently beside him with her usual serious and unreadable expression. On the desk, several corporate documents lie scattered alongside a red lanyard ribbon, paper clips, and an orange sticky note featuring a hand-drawn doodle of the company's fox mascot. The story begins with the main title card, "Got dropped into a ghost story? Still gotta work." On a desk, documents containing digital data are scattered with paper clips and a yellow sticky note featuring a hand-drawn illustration of a cute deer's face. Looking down at his digital tablet, Chief Park Min-sung announces to the team, "This afternoon is a light darkness exploration." Chief Park hands Solium a special portable device designed to collect a mysterious supernatural substance. Solium reviews the system file in his tablet describing dream stuff in the liquid collector, with warnings reading, "Be careful not to lose the collector. Each one has a serial number, so it'll be a real headache if you do." Staring coolly at the new recruit, assistant manager Yoon-ha-jae instructs him, "Let's see your mask." Solium presents his assigned mask, which appears to be crafted from dark, twisting, root-like antlers. Yoon-ha-jae and Chief Park lean in, inspecting the unusual antler mask with deeply curious and surprised expressions. Comical graphic pops up showing a rowdy chibi-style roe deer punching another deer, accompanied by the text, "Roe deer are?" Solium fits the dark antler mask over his eyes, looking determined and ready for whatever lies ahead. A horrific, distorted black creature drips with green slime against a glitchy background, filled with static text, quote, "Ah, the photo, seriously!" Sweating nervously under his mask, Solium tries to maintain his composure during the briefing. Looking at his seniors, Solium questions them with a mix of confusion and dread. "You said we were going to explore the darkness, so why are you showing me this post?" The world around Solium begins to blur and distort with colorful digital artifacts as he lets out a quiet gasp. Chief Park gives a glitchy, encouraging smile as Solium begins to slip away into the anomaly. Over a swirling dark void, the text ominously reads, "Don't tell me, sending a rookie on." Ominous, jagged white text appears on a torn black page. Have to deal with this corporate BS even inside a ghost story? Game selection interface titled Make a Choice displays the classification details of Darkness QTRV-F243, ranked as a shade F. The text explains, a darkness derived from the do a horror challenge for money versus just live normally balance game choices that were popular on the internet. In an instant, Solium finds himself standing alone in the eerie green glow of a completely empty convenience store at night. Solium realizes his situation, thinking, "I've entered the darkness. It's the convenience store from that internet post." A quiet, tense atmosphere fills the dark store, with only the bright beverage cooler casting a pale light across the counter and shelves. On the digital clock above, the red numbers tick forward to display exactly 12:01. Confronted with the terrifying rules of the internet ghost story, Solium thinks, "In that case, for a coward like me, there's only one answer." Reaching his hand toward the glass of the cooler, he plans his strategy. Grab some water and hold out for 3 days. Suddenly, a massive, horrific pair of wide, bloodshot eyes looms out of the darkness behind the bottles, staring directly at him. Solium gasps in absolute terror as his eyes widen with shock, a chilling sound effect echoing his panic. "In the fridge? What?" Trembling on the floor, he screams in his mind. Is there a face? Looking down in horror, Solium sees a giant, dirty, gray hand reaching out from beneath the refrigerator display toward him. A blood-red splash fills the screen with the chilling words, "Got you." Solium's eyes are wide with sheer terror as he looks up at the monstrous entity cornering him. Scrambling to his feet, Solium runs desperately through the convenience store aisles to escape. Sweating and gasping for breath, he flees as a jagged sound effect bubble reads, "Gasp." Pixelated, game-like message appears over a dark screen. You have to start all over again, from the beginning. The digital clock suddenly flashes back to exactly 12 with a loud digital buzzing beep sound. The clock continues to flash 12:0 repeatedly as the loud beeping sound fills the convenience store. Wall clock displaying an infinity loop symbol instead of hands appears under the realization it's literally an endless restart. Back at his starting point by the shelves, Solium thinks, "A coward like me might go crazy before the 3 days are up. I have to find another way." Leaning against the shelves, Solium lowers his head in deep thought, trying to calm his racing heart. The giant, terrifying, pale head of a female ghost with bulging eyes and wet, tangled black hair suddenly rises from behind the counter. The horrific entity turns its distorted face directly towards Solium's hiding spot, its massive eyes scanning the room. Solium quickly covers his nose and mouth, holding his breath to remain completely silent. The massive, creepy face slides closer, wet sounds echoing through the dark convenience store aisles. Trying to anticipate the monster's movements, Solium notes, there are way too many cliches where they pop their face in at times like this. He assesses his options. The moment I make a big move, I'm caught. The light will give me away so I can't look at my phone. My only hope is my memory. Solemn stands in deep concentration, recalling floating database entries of corporate exploration records regarding puppet masters, circus ringmasters, and sewers crawling with bugs. He tells himself, "Think, Kim Soleum, there was definitely an exceptional case." A dramatic red splash of text reads, "A case where time flowed differently than promised." Solemn's eyes widen in sudden, dramatic realization as he finds the key to escaping the loop. Soleum remembers that ghost stories in the darkness exploration records develop anomalies as they gain popularity, which is exactly when people start creating exceptions to the rules. A horrific record details how Teen J from the field exploration team managed to survive for 12 hours in a dark, blood-splattered abandoned hospital at night. Crouching silently as a terrifying dark entity looms in the background, Solemn desperately tries to remember the specific details of that survival record. Sweating under his mask, Soleum strains his memory to figure out what critical mistake the team had made during their exploration. In a sudden flash of insight, he remembers. The loop didn't end because they never received the notification that the doctor's shift had ended. According to the records, 3 hours and 12 minutes in, an employee named Lee Jae Jin had accidentally severed the counter's telephone line. After 12 hours and 12 minutes had elapsed, it was past 7:12 a.m., but the sun did not rise, keeping them trapped inside the darkness. It was only when the phone line was finally restored that the monstrous entity acting as the doctor answered the shift change call at 16:11. A telephone displaying the time 16:11 sits quietly, representing the trigger that was meant to end the anomaly. Soleum realizes that if the nightmare persisted because the trigger failed to activate, then triggering it early could force the ghost story to end immediately. A sudden flood of glitching system alerts pops up in front of him, repeatedly warning that staff assistance is required. The workspace is completely overwhelmed by overlapping notifications declaring that staff assistance is required. The repetitive warnings fill his vision, a claustrophobic wall of text demanding immediate staff intervention. The glitched alert messages repeat endlessly, echoing the tense and hostile atmosphere of the store. Looking at the chaotic messages, Soleum shivers with the terrifying realization that the entity knows he is there and is playing a cruel game with him. Clenching his fist, he prepares himself to break out and run, determined not to let himself feel completely helpless. Observing that the creature is standing right in front of the counter, Soleum plans to make a quick, desperate dash to slip past its side. Under his dark antler mask, Soleum's expression turns deadly serious as he prepares to execute his escape plan. Behind the checkout counter, the terrifying, pale female ghost with dripping hollow eyes taps erratically on the illuminated register. With a sharp gasp of exertion, Soleum bolts forward, running at full speed through the dark convenience store. Knowing his mind will break if this loop repeats again, Soleum reminds himself to find the trigger and activate it early to end the nightmare. The automatic glass doors of the convenience store remain tightly shut, sealing him inside the creepy darkness. Staring at the digital clock showing April 4th, 12, Soleum realizes that if he can force a future event to happen ahead of time, the loop will break. He ponders what typical convenience store event happens after a 3-day interval, searching for an intuitive trigger that is simple to execute. A barcode sticker shows a manufacture date of April 4th and an expiration date of April 6th, giving him a brilliant idea. Recognizing that fresh food items have short shelf lives, he searches for a product with an expiration date 3 days away to dispose of early. His eyes light up as he finds a prepackaged hambox steak lunchbox with an expiration date set exactly for April 7th. Clutching the lunchbox, Soleum stands before the glowing cooler shelves, ready to make a run for the counter. At the front register, the terrifying, distorted cashier ghost continues typing away amidst glitching black static. The register area is temporarily quiet, with only the bright glow of the monitor casting eerie shadows over the counter. Forcing himself to overcome his paralyzing fear, Soleum steels his resolve to complete the task right now. Reaching the counter, Soleum prepares to scan the hambox steak lunchbox's barcode to register its disposal. With a steady hand, he reaches out his finger and presses down firmly on the designated register key. In a moment of absolute suspense, Soleum silently prays for the system to work as he initiates the action. A wave of relief washes over Soleum as the register lets out a successful beep sound. A system notification appears on the screen, declaring the activation of a disposal alarm. Soleum leans forward, keeping his eyes on the monitor to check the status of the disposal process. Screen flashes a warning message notifying him that there is a product nearing its expiration date. A horrifying, distorted shriek echoes through the dark store as the entity screams in reaction to the alarm. Hearing the creature close in, Soleum commands himself not to look and to just focus on finishing the disposal. Trembling but determined, he aims the barcode scanner, letting its bright red laser register the lunchbox. With a swift, decisive movement, he drops the product down into the register's disposal container. A wet, slimy, monstrous hand reaches out aggressively from the dark shadows, just inches from grabbing him. A notification pop-up confirms that the disposal has been registered, and Solium looks up in sweat-drenched relief. A brilliant, blinding white light suddenly explodes across the room, tearing apart the dark, glitchy anomaly. The terrifying darkness vanishes completely, replaced by the bright, normal fluorescent lights of a standard convenience store. The quiet hum of a receipt printer breaks the silence at the checkout counter, printing out a confirmation slip. Gasping for breath, Solium blinks in surprise as he looks around the peaceful, normal store. Collapsing in comical chibi relief, Solemn passionately notes that humans really need light to survive as his mind finally finds peace. Just as he relaxes and thinks he can finally leave, a sudden sound from the machine causes him to freeze in shock. Money? Ready when you are. The rookie won't be out for at least 3 days. I should get through the paperwork in the meantime. Man, writing reports is such a pain. Huh, tell me about it. The dream stuff collector. Solium stands quietly, holding up the vial of glowing yellow liquid he successfully collected about an hour ago. Hand flicks open a silver Zippo lighter, lighting a cigarette. She takes a slow drag and blows the smoke out into the gloomy, overcast sky. Right now, Team D's new recruit is alone inside a ghost story. Since it's a 3-day one, it should be a pretty mild ghost story. Even if it drags on, they have food, so they'll be fine. Her sharp eyes narrow slightly as she contemplates the situation. Of course, quite a few new recruits have quit because of this initiation. Still, why do we put them through this initiation? It means if they can't even handle this, they should just hand in their resignation before they end up losing their life. But about this new recruit, you could say? He smiles warmly, hoping for the best. She lets out a knowing smirk as they walk together. She closes her eyes, taking a thoughtful puff of her cigarette. There was one, a coward who somehow made it through. They both nod their heads in quiet, synchronized agreement. It's their first job, so they probably don't know any better. I'll make sure to tell them that an information memo is essential for our work, since their life is on the line. Yeah, give them... I did know it beforehand. He turns to his colleague, gesturing with the tablet in his hand. Huh? Why is it suddenly vibrating? The tablet screen glows brightly in his hand. I've completed it. Ghost story that takes at least 3 days? The new recruit cleared it in just an hour? Huh. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. A plate of fresh cookies sits quietly on the table. It hasn't even been 3 days, so how did you get out? Forwarded time. They answered like they're ordering lunch. I figured there must be an event within the ghost story that triggers the passage of time. If I triggered the event scheduled for 3 days later ahead of time, the ghost story would end. So by using the expiration date to discard the food is a genius. No resignation. No, I mean, we can't let them. Escape? No, we must help them adjust well. We'll never find another new recruit like this again. Please don't forget about me when you make it big, Ro dear. You'll probably surpass me and become an assistant manager in no time. Ready whenever you are. What would you like me to read? I only got out so quickly because I was scared. The two colleagues stare at him in utter silence. Yes, I thought I was going to die. Stop lying. Huh? You get paid for clearing these ghost stories, right? It came out to 10 million won. Grab. The colleague reassuringly pats Solium on the shoulder, offering to take care of the tedious paperwork. Don't be shy, take it, his colleague encourages him, while Solium's inner conscience wriggles with guilt upon realizing the clearing reward was actually 20 million won. His colleague tells Solium to focus on the most important task at hand, which immediately brings a bright smile to another coworker's face as they mention doing that. A bright notification flashes on the screen, announcing the accumulation of points for the Employee Welfare Mall. On the clean white desk next to a planner and a coffee mug sits a tiny white lizard-like creature with glowing red eyes. Solium sits at his computer desk, staring in mild confusion at the bizarre little mascot sitting right in front of his monitor. Clicking on his mousepad decorated with a cute fox character, Solium begins to navigate through the internal network. He is pleasantly surprised to find that the product selection in the Employee Welfare Mall is actually quite decent. Curious about his options, Solium wonders how much a coveted Wish ticket would cost in the store. He is completely flabbergasted to see that a Wish ticket costs an astronomical 500,000 points, with a snarky message letting him know he can't buy it. Solium calculates his options, realizing he needs to aim for higher-ranked missions to gather that many points. He realizes a B-rank mission yields 10,000 points, but since he wouldn't go alone, he has to calculate the split for a 3-person team. Dividing 10,000 points 3 ways leaves them with just over 3,000 points each, meaning he would have to clear an absurd number of missions to afford a single ticket. On his desk, a creepy animated figurine of a chainsaw killer threatening a victim serves as a grim reminder of their on-site ghost story experiences. Sweating profusely as his mind is consumed by complex calculations, Solemn reluctantly nods and agrees with his colleague. Pointing at the cute white reptile on the desk, Salim inquires about its origin. His brown-haired colleague happily looks over at him, ready to explain the story behind the strange desk mascot. The colleague beams with a bright dog-patterned aura, explaining how cute the little creature is, while Solium's sweat drops in response. His colleague gestures for them to head out as their blue-haired teammate walks away in the background. Solium's eyes narrow as he begins to formulate a quiet plan of his own. An idea sparks in Solium's mind. I'll have to use a little trick here. Leaning down quietly, Solium reaches under the computer monitor stand to search for something. He successfully finds a pink sticky note containing manager Lee Jae-hyun's login credentials, mocking the complete lack of basic security awareness. Solium's fingers fly across the keyboard as he types in the administrator's ID and password. Clenching his fist in triumph, he celebrates silently as the login successfully goes through. Accessing it is simple. Just click around randomly in the welfare mall, he reminds himself as he navigates the interface. The bright glow of the screen reflects in his intense, focused eyes. A green, pixelated alien hand flashes onto the screen with a loud sound effect. He reads the corporate policy stating that clearing an F-rank darkness pays out 50% of the profits to the employee, while the company takes everything from a recruit's very first assigned mission. His colleague mentions that someone gifted him the white reptile because it looks just like him, and Salim quietly agrees. The pixelated alien hand sweeps across the screen in a rapid blur of motion. Knowing that the company computers track and record all access logs, Salim decides to copy the link so he can safely access the hidden page from home. A pixelated beam of light from a retro UFO vacuums up a chibi version of Solium. Sitting comfortably in his office chair, Solium takes out his smartphone to continue his search. He pulls up the secret web address he copied and saved earlier on his device. A flashy retro screen loads up, prompting Solium to complain about how incredibly cheap and outdated the design looks. Pixelated stars float around Solium as he sighs over the fact that the website isn't even optimized for mobile viewing. He scrolls down to read the item descriptions on the retro interface, searching for something useful. A colorful pixelated banner reading "Voila" pops up on the screen to reveal the available inventory. Solemn pumps his fist in excitement, realizing he actually recognizes more than half of the supernatural items listed on the page. He spots an emergency assistance button priced at a ridiculously high amount, instantly dismissing it as being way over his budget. After scrolling through the catalog, Solium's eyes lock onto the perfect item for his current situation. Pixelated stars descend through the darkness as the transaction is finalized. Solemn watches the screen intently, waiting for the system to process his order. A digital countdown timer ticks down to 2 seconds beneath a small green pixelated UFO graphic. Suddenly, 2 cardboard boxes labeled Space Shopping Mall materialize out of thin air directly into Solemn's hands, catching him completely off guard. He marvels in disbelief as the packages settle onto his desk. "It's literally a rocket delivery," he exclaims as a pixelated cartoon rocket blasts off behind him. Stunned by the efficiency of the supernatural system, Solium thinks, "You crazy world, I guess you can actually be cool instead of scary." Unboxing his order, he reveals a vintage tin box labeled Alice Picnic Set and a snake-patterned silver coin labeled Silver Coin Snake. Unboxing the Alice Picnic Set reveals an assortment of treats, including stacked cookies labeled Eat Me and several cans labeled Drink Me, which Solium notes will be useful to carry around. Next up is the Silver Coin Snake, which is currently on a massive sale, marked down from nearly 20 million won to just under 5 million won. Solium realizes that since various ghost story currencies can be exchanged for real cash through specific organizations, buying this coin on sale now means turning a massive profit later. However, there are other items in the store, such as the pixelated vampiric tableware set consisting of a fork and a knife. The manual warns that the vampiric tableware is a weapon designed to fight ghosts directly, but the illustrative comic humorously depicts a cowardly Solium getting completely drained of blood by a ghost anyway. He sweat drops at the thought of having his blood drained by a ghost, realizing direct combat is definitely not his style. Another illustration shows a doctor nonchalantly drawing blood from a long-haired ghost, highlighting the bizarre nature of these supernatural items. Later back at the office, Solium shows the radio to his assistant manager, who is instantly curious about where he got it. Solium is internally sweating, wondering how he could ever explain that he used their manager's ID to buy it. A pixelated thought bubble pops up showing the radio, Alice's potion, and the cookies, accompanied by a satisfied retro smiley face. Solemn stands with his arms crossed and eyes closed, trying to maintain a calm, professional composure. A bright, warm smile spreads across Solium's face as a system notification pops up, noting that he seems to have truly enjoyed his shopping spree. But there's always a catch. The fictional ghost comes as a free gift, as shown by a chibi Solium shivering under his blanket with a giant, wide-eyed ghost looming right over him. The scene shifts to a bird's-eye view of a modern high-rise office building, Bageldong, with a beautifully landscaped rooftop garden. Back in the office, his brown-haired colleague reassures him that this next task is about the same level as orientation, while Solium feels a wave of major PTSD washing over him. The colleague hands over a tablet displaying the manual and answer sheet for a D-rank ghost story titled The Tuesday Quiz Show Glimmer. Solemn stares at the tablet with a deadpan expression, muttering that as long as you know the answers, things should go smoothly. His colleague assumes he asked for the physical manual to take notes, but Solium quickly corrected him. With a perfectly blank face, Solium casually reveals that he has already memorized the entire manual, shocking his colleague. Seeing a complex stream of mathematical formulas behind Solium, the colleague is amazed, pointing to his head and realizing that's why he wasn't taking notes. Solium is completely baffled by the dramatic misunderstanding. Solium stands there awkwardly with a question mark floating over his head as his colleagues look at him with a mix of sweat-dropping disbelief and serious admiration. Their blue-haired assistant manager, Yoon-ha-jae, takes a phone call and nods, saying she understands the situation. After hanging up, she turns back, prompting the colleague to ask if it's really just going to be the three of them on this mission. A cute chibi diagram pops up explaining that due to some adult performance record issues, they're shorthanded. Solium looks up at Yoon-ha-jae, wondering if they can delay going in if he pretends he hasn't memorized the manual yet. But his colleague immediately ruins that hope by giving a double thumbs up with a bright smile, leaving Solium to silently despair that he is absolutely doomed. Yoon-ha-jae coolly drapes her jacket over her shoulder, preparing to lead the team out into the field. As they head out, she reassures Solium that this happens from time to time, while Solium's moral compass shatters as he realizes this must be his punishment for keeping the extra 20 million won. He reviews what he knows about the Tuesday quiz show Glimmer, realizing it is a D-rank ghost story he has never read about before. Staring at his phone against a matrix of glitched red data, Solium wonders if the company's control over the darkness is far more vast than he initially expected. Solium fills out an old, stamped application card, focusing on the sender field. The name Badger is written on the line in bold, black ink. Below it, the name Peregrine Falcon is filled in. Finally, a pen writes Roe Deer on the last application card, finalizing the team's codenames with a sharp click. A dramatic black smoke effect slashes across the dark screen, signaling the initiation of the mission. A sharp, golden portal of light cuts through the darkness with a brilliant flash. A circular golden lens opens up, radiating intense, warm light as they prepare to enter the ghost story. The swirling golden light intensifies, completely engulfing their vision as they cross the threshold. The team is suddenly greeted by a brightly lit, retro-themed television stage featuring a sign that reads The Tuesday Quiz Show with Brown. Stylish, jazzy band sound echoes through the air as old TV monitors flicker with hypnotic swirl patterns behind a drum set. Contestants Badger and Peregrine Falcon stand behind their podiums, followed by Solium, who is wearing a silly pair of deer antlers and a mask, as the announcer proclaims that connecting with the audience is what makes a true show. The host of the show steps forward, a man in a sharp suit with a retro television for a head, displaying a winking yellow smiley face. Solium stands behind his podium labeled Roe Deer, sweat dropping in sheer embarrassment. A massive burst of light fills the screen as Solium's mind reels. TV? The television-headed host strikes a dramatic pose, signaling the cameras to stand by and asking the audience for one final cheer before the show begins. Bright stage lights flash brilliantly and the host cries out, "Because." "Your cheers are," the host continues, gesturing dramatically toward the three contestants standing at their podiums. A massive, colorful sound effect of cheering erupts on screen. The screen is filled with repeating vertical rows of cheering text as the invisible audience goes wild. Clapping his hands politely, Solium thinks to himself that this show isn't nearly as terrifying as he had anticipated. Even as a creepy, giant grinning face looms in the shadows behind the stage, Solium remains calm, figuring that compared to the convenience store ghost, a host with a TV mask is completely manageable. Solium observes the studio, noting that the venue is normal too. It is an old-fashioned but normal set with an audience section, feeling like an old American talk show. Close-up of Solium wearing his deer antlers and eye mask, looking downward with a serious, contemplative expression. A puzzle piece-style transition frame detailing the elements of the ghost story, an old American talk show, a quiz segment, and a situation where the contestants already know the answers. Text on a dark, vertically striped background reads, "This ghost story." The host with a television for a head raises his hands enthusiastically, declaring, "Well then, it looks like we're ready. Let's dive right in." A digital countdown graphic on a retro frame displays the number 3. A screen displaying technical details reads, "A ghost story documented in Darkness Exploration Records. Daydream Co. Ltd. Identification code QTurb A104. Below it, a retro frame displays 2 over an image of Badger and Peregrine Falcon. Retro frame displays 1 over a close-up of Solium, who looks extremely stressed and sweaty behind his deer mask. Red pixelated text at the top reads, "Of Survivors," over a dark, striped vertical background reminiscent of a film roll. Film strip panels displaying stylized Korean text in a circular vintage frame with the sound effect of a camera shutter or movie reel spinning. Film strip showing a dark screen with the sound effect trrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr showing chaotic scenes of the empty talk show studio. Red spotlight on a striped background with the narration, the disaster began with a 70s American talk show-themed glimmer D-rank darkness. The television-headed host appears on screen with a winking smiley face, welcoming viewers, you are watching the Tuesday Quiz Show. The host asks, have you all been waiting for Tuesday? While the narration explains that the talk show has a different theme for each day of the week, but there are no recorded cases of entering on any other day. The host continues, because I certainly have, as the narration notes that entry is only possible for the Tuesday talk show. Spotlights shine down on the podiums of Badger labeled Osori and Peregrine Falcon labeled Sangolme, both standing silently in their suits and masks. Two documents are shown, titled The Tuesday Quiz Show Glimmer D-Rank Manual Answer Sheet. The narration notes, they successfully escaped without any casualties for 99 explorations up to the 110th episode. Prizes included, a bright spotlight flashes onto the stage as the host announces, now let's introduce our contestants. Panels showing the contestants, Badger, Peregrine Falcon, and finally Selim wearing his deer antlers and mask. Retro banner reads, and roe deer against a dark stage background. The television-headed host with a winking yellow face raises his hand and asks, will our contestants continue their remarkable winning streak today? Stay tuned and let's find out together. A screen block text announces the 110th episode of the Tuesday Quiz Show starts now. Selim thinks to himself in a jagged dialogue balloon, if it's the 110th episode, then this should still be Exploration 99. A close-up of Selim's eye widening in sudden panic as he realizes it's not the 100th. Peregrine Falcon looks back over her shoulder in surprise, noticing Selim's tense behavior. Peregrine Falcon nods and gives Selim a reassuring smirk, alongside Badger, who smiles warmly. Selim tries to calm himself down, thinking, the odds of landing on the 100th exploration on my first attempt are incredibly low. My seniors look relaxed too. It's okay, it'll be fine, but I shouldn't let my guard down. This is still inside a ghost story. A view through a television monitor shows Badger smiling confidently next to a calm and composed Peregrine Falcon. The television host's screen turns black with a single glowing red lens as giant hands reach out, accompanied by the chilling reminder, any unexpected behavior is practically a death sentence. The host walks over to Selim's podium and asks, are you all right? Selim sweats and replies, yes. It's my first time on a quiz show, so I'm a bit tense. The host responds in a cheerful tone, excellent, excellent, as static crackles on a screen. The host's television screen flashes with multicolored digital static as he raises a gloved finger and says, then let's start with an easy one. Q. Choose the option that is not a component of the human body. 1. Water. 2. Iron. 3. Oil. 4. Soil. The host enthusiastically throws a thumbs up with a smiling face on his screen, shouting correct, while the audience cheers wildly. Peregrine Falcon looks slightly surprised as the host announces, unbelievable, Peregrine Falcon too, The host gestures dramatically toward Selim's podium, shouting, roe deer is struggling to choose an answer. Oh, the hesitation, the agony, while Selim covers his mouth in fake deep thought. Selim sweatedly gives his answer. Number 3, strangulation. The host announces, number 3. Now, what is the fate of roe deer who chose strangulation? The host raises a sign with a circle on it declaring, that is correct. Selim's sweat drops and thinks, it was obviously number 3, but just trying to play along. Multiple text boxes overlap as the team breezes through the quiz. Now on to the next question. Correct. Oh, that time, correct. Wait, again? Correct. Selim resolves to just follow the manual and get through this safely. Confetti falls over the stage as the host announces, amazing, we're on a winning streak. Contestants have answered every question correctly. And now only the final question remains. A massive gloved hand points towards Selim as the host asks, will they maintain their perfect record? Host asks, roe deer, are you ready? And Selim answers with a sweat drop, yes. The final question screen displays with dramatic flair. Question: at what percentage of blood loss does a human die? 1, 40, 2, 45, 3, 50, 4, 55. Solem stares at his podium, sweat dripping down his face as he delivers his answer. The answer is... The host's television screen shows a happy face as he slowly reveals, choosing number 1 and number 2, number 3 and number 4. Solium looks sharply at the host, who seems completely stunned by his response. Human life is typically endangered after losing 30 to 40 of total blood volume. Behind the host's screen, numerous glowing white eyes of the audience stare intently as the host remarks, "Multiple correct answers. How bold." An assistant director in the background panics as the host asks, "Do you wish to change your answer?" And Solium firmly replies, "No." The host, with a television for a head, tilts his screen, showing an ear icon, and listens intently, nodding as he says, "Oh, I see." The peaceful expression on his screen, the host calmly remarks, "Actually, the answer our writers prepared was number 1, leaving Solium completely shocked by the unexpected reveal. The host presents his cue card, the screen switching to a microphone graphic as he enthusiastically asks the audience, "Isn't Rodeer's answer far more impressive?" Pointing dramatically towards Solium's podium, the host announces, "I'll accept it as a perfect answer. Brilliant," as a high score of 100 flashes on the screen. As the bright spotlights shine down on the stage, the host announces, "And that brings the 110th episode of the Tuesday Quiz Show to a close." The narration explains that all contestants astonishingly maintained a perfect record, while Badger and Peregrine Falcon sigh in relief, unaware of the warning notes stuck to the screen advising them not to yawn in front of the cameras. Confetti rains down as the spotlight centers on Solium, with the announcement declaring him the MVP of the 99th exploration. The host asks for a warm round of applause for their MVP as Solium is handed a special prize box, prompting him to sweat nervously and wonder why he was chosen. Holding his deer-themed mask, Solium lets out a long, weary sigh of relief, thinking to himself that it is finally over. The host cheerfully waves goodbye to the viewers, but as he begins to announce their return, the broadcast screen violently glitches with multicolored digital static. Dramatic rainbow-colored static lines cut across the figures of the 3 contestants as they stand frozen on the stage. A sharp clicking sound echoes through the studio as a bright spotlight snaps onto an empty podium. Sudden, blinding camera flashes erupt in succession through the darkness, accompanied by a rapid series of shutter clicks. Low, ominous rumbling sound vibrates through the studio as the stacked television monitors in the background flicker. A wide shot of the studio reveals a bizarre and unsettling sight. 6 contestants standing behind their podiums, with 3 new unfamiliar faces joining the original team. A tense silence fills the room as a camera zooms in with a sharp metallic click. Under the harsh spotlights, the 3 newly arrived contestants look incredibly anxious, sweat dripping down their faces. Badger and Peregrine Falcon exchange bewildered and concerned glances, realizing that something is deeply wrong with this sudden turn of events. In the heavy silence of the studio, someone mutters in confusion, "Huh?" A chibi-style summary illustrates how Kim Solium diligently solved every question just to survive, while the host has already moved on to presenting question number 100. The narration shifts to describe the newcomers as employees arriving directly from the field. The sudden realization hits them like a physical blow. Exploration team? Solemn stares in sheer disbelief, sweating as he wonders why they would enter the exact same ghost story, while another contestant mutters in panic, "What is this?" A dark panel recalls a terrifying detail from the manual, questioning why the people who entered before them are still present in the studio. A skeletal hand holds up a screen showing a grim warning. Disrupting the broadcast will result in incineration. With a deafening blast, one of the podiums is instantly engulfed in a violent, towering column of fire. Peregrine Falcon looks back in horror, the bright orange glow of the flames reflecting in her wide, trembling eyes. Colorful stars pop up as a dramatic announcement cuts through the panic with a loud, cheerful exclamation. "Surprise!" The television-headed host points directly at the camera, declaring that this was a surprise preview of the contestants appearing next Tuesday. Solemn stares blankly at the pile of gray ash and rising black smoke where a contestant stood just moments ago, his mind completely numb with shock. A retro camera sits silently in the shadows, its red recording light glowing ominously in the dark. Solium clenches his trembling fist in frustration, sweating profusely as a warning note reminds him that any behavior showing a lack of respect will result in immediate removal. Forcing a strained, sweating smile, Solium holds up his prize box and waves to the camera, saying, "Please look forward to next week." Loud, cheerful musical fanfare echoes through the studio as confetti falls all around them. Colorful confetti and musical notes continue to float down over the empty music stands on the darkened stage. The camera pulls back to a high-angle shot as the host begins to wrap up the show, cheerfully announcing, "That's all for today, unfortunately." A retro end credit screen rolls over the image of Solium and the host, promising to see the audience tomorrow with an even more exciting show. The host waves goodbye with a winking heart emoji on his screen as the golden text, "See you next show," shines brightly. A sudden, blinding flash of light bursts across the dark screen, marking the transition. The host wipes his television head in relief, letting out a heavy sigh. "We almost ruined the live broadcast. I'm glad we managed to save it." A studio assistant silently sweeps the pile of black ash left behind by the vaporized contestant into a dustpan. Walking over to Solium, the host cheerfully asks, "Would you happen to be interested in becoming a regular panelist?" To which Solium politely declines, stating he already has a job. The host reassures the three terrified newcomers that they will get their chance to participate soon, but is suddenly interrupted as a staff member whispers urgent news into his ear. The host's screen changes to a sad, downcast face as he solemnly remarks, "This is rather difficult news to deliver." Against a striped background, the devastating announcement is displayed. Our show is just canceled. Solium's eyes widen in absolute horror as the host explains that while his own show isn't over, the quiz segment has been replaced. The host raises his hands enthusiastically, claiming to have some good news as Peregrine Falcon stares at him with an intense, deadpan expression. The host happily announces that all of them will be included as contestants for the new segment, causing Peregrine Falcon's eyes to widen in pure shock and horror. Solium grimaces, sweat dripping down his face as he realizes the sheer danger of this unexpected development. A clipboard containing the clear report of the Tuesday quiz show is shown, detailing that while the new segment starts in the same studio, the program's name has changed. Blurry documents with grids and typed text lie scattered in the darkness, hinting at hidden records and schedules. A red document floats ominously in the dark, bearing the suspenseful announcement, and the new segment is... A stylized notification panel reveals the host's reassuring but eerie promise, and since it's a recorded broadcast, it'll be much easier than before. The television-headed host cheerfully declares his supportive role, but is suddenly interrupted by an urgent cry of, "Wait!" Peregrine Falcon objects firmly, stating that since they have already participated in the show, they will be leaving immediately. The television host's screen flickers with a dark red, ominous static as he coldly replies, "The filming isn't over yet." Leaning down close to Peregrine Falcon, the host eerily explains that the instructions must have been written on the postcard, adding that leaving in the middle of a broadcast is quite troublesome. The host's television screen suddenly displays a terrifying, glowing yellow skull with hollow eyes amidst a backdrop of raging red flames. Peregrine Falcon stands sweating and tense, muttering in frustration that she didn't expect to appear on the show back-to-back. Solium clenches his fist in concern, warning the team that they might make a mistake during the broadcast, while inwardly resolving that he must find a way to stop this. Sweat dripping down his face, Solium searches desperately for any excuse to escape the studio and return next Tuesday. In the shadows, a studio crew member holds up a cue card with OK written in red, signaling that the broadcast is ready to proceed. The host enthusiastically orders everyone to take their places so they can finally begin the show, leaving Solium sweating in deep anxiety. A harsh spotlight shines directly on the back of the host's television head as a narration box grimly remarks, "This guy." With a cheerful winking smiley face on his screen, the host enthusiastically welcomes the viewers back to the Tuesday show. Over a backdrop of floating musical notes, the host announces that the audience is watching a brand new segment of their talk show. Promising a more advanced quiz show, the host remarks that nothing touches the human heart quite like a beautiful melody. Under the heavy, demonic gaze of a hidden entity, the contestants look on in terror as the host says that a chorus is a truly beautiful sound. The host gestures dramatically to the audience, building up the suspense as he prepares to reveal the name of the new segment. A towering, terrifying pig-faced figure in a suit with blood dripping from its eyes looms in the background, introduced as the conductor of the Tuesday choir. Amidst falling confetti, the host welcomes the audience and prepares to introduce the special guest invited for this deadly new segment. The host presents the guest, the butcher of filthy, hideous, yet great melodies, and the conductor of the Purgatory Choir, preparing to showcase his magnificent instrument. A comical but eerie chibi drawing depicts the pig conductor standing silently under a spotlight while a tiny cameraman looks on in confusion. The host looks up towards the ceiling, excitedly announcing that the maestro's instrument is descending onto the stage right now. A heavy, metallic clanging sound echoes through the studio as a large metal chain drops from above. A large, ornate silver platter descends from the ceiling, glowing with a faint, ghostly cyan light. Multiple metal scale plates hang down on thin cords all over the stage, swinging silently with metallic clicks. The silver platter reveals detailed engravings of crying, tormented skull faces as the host asks who will be the first participant to join the choir. Two terrified newcomers sweat profusely as the host decides to give the honor of the first challenge to the fresh faces. The spotlight snaps onto a pink-haired contestant named Mole, who trembles as the host presents his question. The screen displays the question, which of the following organisms has the longest lifespan? 1. Pig. 2. Human. 3. Rabbit. 4. Flea. Terrified and desperate to survive, Mole recalls how the previous quiz worked and screams his answer. Number 2. It's human. As the host cheerfully congratulates Mole on passing, a sudden, clean slice severs Mole's head, sending a fountain of dark blood spraying into the air. With a horrific wet splash, Mole's severed head lands perfectly onto one of the silver scale plates. The pig conductor raises his hands, preparing to direct the newly formed choir. A bright title card announces that their very first choir member has successfully taken their place. Mole's severed head on the scale plate suddenly flies open its eyes and mouth, screaming the answer in a horrific, echoing melody. Whew! It's human! The blonde female contestant screams in absolute terror as the severed head of her colleague continues to sing her name, Sion, in a ghostly chorus. Crying in pure horror, Sion stares down at the singing, severed head of Mole as it continues to softly call her name. The host points forward as Mole's headless body is engulfed in a roaring column of fire, cheerfully moving on to the next contestant. Spotlight focuses on the next terrified newcomer, Jellyfish, as the host asks if he is ready. With the spotlight shining down, the host repeatedly asks Jellyfish if he is prepared to face his question. Driven to absolute panic by the horrific sight of Mole, Jellyfish screams that he would rather take the penalty than answer the question. Declaring him eliminated, the host watches as Jellyfish's body instantly bursts into brilliant white flames, leaving behind scattered flowers. The remaining contestants stand frozen in horror as the host sighs over how unfortunate it is that Jellyfish failed to join their magnificent choir. A grim surveillance-style overview reveals the headless, bloodied bodies of the contestants scattered across the floor, noting that an entire group vanished in just 5 minutes. Solium realizes the terrifying rules of this A-rank ghost story. Failure to answer means instant vaporization, but getting the answer right leads to decapitation and eternal enslavement as a singing spirit. Against a glitched, colorful static screen, a chilling thought surfaces. I remembered a fact I had been ignoring. A heavily distorted, pixelated image of two people appears as Solium recognizes the blurred figures of Chief Park and Assistant Manager Ha. The host's television screen changes to a creepy, hand-drawn red smiley face as he whispers, "Ah, a familiar face." Under a harsh pink spotlight, Badger sweats in sheer terror as his name is called out. An atmospheric title card features 3 stylized characters with silver and dark hair standing amidst swirling pages and wind. Sweating profusely under the intense stage light, Badger realizes with absolute dread that it is his turn to answer. Dark blood splatters across a grainy black background as the dark reality of their situation sets in. Slumped and lifeless bodies lie scattered across the dark stage, showing the horrific consequence of failing the host's deadly game. Staring into the darkness, Badger sees the ominous shadow of deer antlers and a hanging rope projected onto the wall ahead of him. A thick, red, braided rope rests heavily around Badger's neck, symbolizing the tightening grip of inevitable death. Clutching his postcard tightly, Badger bows his head in desperate refusal as the pressure of the deadly broadcast builds. Badger's eye dilates in pure focus and adrenaline as he desperately commands himself to keep a grip on his sanity. A spiky caption box appears against a white background, declaring that this overwhelming sensation isn't just simple fear. A massive wave crashes violently down, conveying the sheer, helpless awe of facing an unstoppable natural disaster up close. Solium grips his smartphone tightly, reminding himself that he is the one with the highest chance of surviving this horrific ordeal. Set against a crimson striped background, the host calls out to Badger, asking if he is finally ready to answer. Terrified out of his mind, Mole screams his answer into the microphone, desperately shouting that the correct choice is human. The television-headed host tilts his head curiously, his screen displaying a simple smiley face as he prompts Badger for his answer. Badger forces a polite, sweating smile and nods, receiving a cheerful exclamation of "Excellent" from the host. The host's television screen lights up with a cheerful, open-mouthed smile as he happily acknowledges Badger's response. Badger keeps up his friendly facade, politely requesting that someone check on the other contestants after the filming is complete. Liquid splashes out from the bottom of the host's television head as he is deeply moved by Badger's display of concern. Gritting her teeth in tense anticipation, the purple-haired contestant silently wonders if Badger's clever excuse will actually work. Standing tall in his suit, Solium raises his hand politely to interrupt the host. Television host's screen displays a stark question mark as he asks Solium, who is participating under the name Deer, if he has something to say. The other contestants watch in sheer terror and disbelief, thinking that interrupting the host's broadcast is an incredibly dangerous move. Solium rubs his forehead and feigns intense dizziness, politely asking if he can excuse himself to rest for a moment. A pair of small, cartoonish round faces emerge from the bottom of the host's TV head, dripping liquid onto his shoulder. A white-gloved hand prepares to snap its fingers to stop the camera recording. The host's screen changes to a red pause symbol as he calls for a cut and announces a 30-minute break. The remaining contestants stand in complete shock, amazed that Solium managed to interrupt the host without being instantly incinerated. Sweating with relief, Solium realizes his gamble paid off, knowing he would have died instantly if this were a live broadcast. Heavy studio cameras sit under the stage lights, emphasizing that because this is a recorded broadcast, different rules apply. Tiny, smiling cartoon faces drip down from the bottom of the host's television head once again. A heavily distorted, static-filled television screen reveals that Solium's sudden interruption has had a strange effect on the entity. The host apologizes for the technical difficulty, claiming he needs to adjust his antenna and requests that someone guide Solium to the waiting room. A winking face and a glass of water appear on the host's television screen as he cheerfully tells Solium to go rest and have some water. Walking away from the stage, Solium lets out a quiet sigh of relief under his mask. Suddenly, the purple-haired contestant reaches out and grabs Solium's arm, stopping him in his tracks. Leaning in close, the purple-haired contestant whispers a cold confirmation that Solium is completely alone. Finally alone in the dim dressing room, Solium leans heavily against the wall and exhales a deep breath of exhaustion. Solium grimaces in frustration, knowing that although he successfully bought some time, 30 minutes is barely enough to formulate a plan. Looking down at his hand, Solium finds a simple metallic 4-hole button resting in his palm. Examining the object closely, Solium realizes that it isn't a normal button, but a device that can be pressed. Solium pinches the metallic button, pressing it down with a soft click. Staring at the poster-covered wall of the dressing room, Solium hears a soft click sound echo from the small device. From the other end of the transmitter, the serious voice of Lee Ja-hyun, the team leader of Team D, greets him. Realizing the button is actually a communication device, Solium listens as the voice explains it is assistant manager Eunhaji's call button. Solium quickly asks if the person on the other end is the leader of Team D and receives a prompt confirmation. Sweating under the immense pressure, Solium introduces himself as a new recruit and states he has an urgent report to make. Against a dark, blood-splattered background, Solium desperately warns the team leader that everyone in Team D will die in 30 minutes. The vanity mirror in the dressing room stands surrounded by bright light bulbs, with a hammer, a wrench, and a screwdriver laid out on the wooden desk. The team leader tells Solium to buy another 30 minutes, to which Solium can only reply in sheer panic that doing so seems completely impossible. Solium tightly grips the transmitter button in his hand, sweating with anxiety as he hears Lee Ja-hyun speak on the other end. He wonders how the team leader can remain so incredibly calm and composed when his team's very lives are on the line. Solium grimaces, demanding to know if buying another 30 minutes will actually change their grim situation, to which Lee Ja-hyun firmly replies that it will. The team leader explains that if they can secure at least 55 minutes, they can obtain security team authorization to rent weapons and an entry device to rescue them. He warns Solium that even if they fast-track the bureaucratic process, it will take 40 minutes to get approval, plus another 20 minutes to physically enter the darkness. Only after that hour of preparation will they have a fighting chance to rescue Team D from the entity's grasp. Solium's eye narrows in absolute disbelief as he realizes the team leader intends to enter the darkness with special equipment and suppress a Class A phenomenon all on his own. A sudden realization hits him like a lightning bolt. Lee Ja-hyun isn't just anyone. He is a named character with immense power. An intensely glitched and pixelated profile on a smartphone screen displays a dark, enigmatic silhouette of a person. Recognizing the name, Solium realizes that if this person truly is one of the legendary named employees, a whole new path has just opened up, prompting him to ask what kind of mask the team leader is wearing. With this crucial piece of information, a completely new possibility for survival opens up before Solium. Back on the brightly lit stage, the TV-headed host is sprayed with perfume and cleaned by assistants as his screen displays a 30-minute break coffee cup. He cheerfully turns back to the stage, calling out to Deer. The host politely asks Solium if he is feeling well enough to put on the best show possible, and Solium forces a nod, thanking him for his consideration. Solium notes that the host's tone is exceptionally friendly, realizing that the smile sticker effect must still be keeping the entity pacified. Standing nearby on the stage, the purple-haired girl and Badger look extremely tense and worried as the filming is about to resume. Solium reminds himself that survival is the absolute priority, as long as the three of them can safely get out of this place alive. He keeps his focus locked onto the TV-headed host, preparing to make his next high-stakes move. A comical illustration shows cartoon hands polishing the TV host's head with a bottle of liquid screen cleaner during the brief cosmetic touch-up. Standing on the stage, the host looks down at Solium curiously, a large question mark appearing on his screen as he asks if Road Deer has something to say to him. Knowing his life is on the line, Solium grits his teeth, realizing he must find a way to manipulate the host's mood for his plan to succeed, even if it means resorting to shameless flattery. Solium speaks up politely, praising the host by saying he clearly pours a tremendous amount of love and passion into his show, shocking the host. Solium goes on to compliment the set as trendy and gorgeous with a clear concept and praises the host's dynamic ability to adapt to the audience in real time. Behind his polite smile and open palm gesture, Solium sweats profusely in sheer embarrassment, cringing at how easily the shameless flattery pours out of him under the threat of death. A simple, bright pink cartoon smiley face beams with intense joy on the screen, showing the host is absolutely delighted by the praise. Thrilled by the compliment, the host exclaims that he is completely flattered, adding that a broadcast is made together and that Road Deer is a vital part of it, leaving Solium sweating as he tries to steer the conversation further. The host stands proudly, his screen displaying a happy, smiling face, as Solium prepares to guide the entity's focus toward the show's format. Solium points out that the live band is barely utilized, the penalties are gone, and there is only canned applause instead of a live audience, making it feel completely different from the talk show he used to love. A black and white flashback shows Solium leaning against the waiting room wall, remembering that the host's private space used to be covered in posters of the show. He remembers seeing the walls packed with posters of a talk show that was once broadcast in real time, full of vibrant energy. He points out that the sudden restructuring and cost-cutting have stripped the show of its original charm and identity. Solium pauses dramatically, asking if the true reason for this drastic restructuring might be due to a certain guest. A glitched neon teal silhouette of a mysterious figure stands out against a harsh crimson background, representing the unwelcome guest. A heavily distorted transition frame flashes across the screen, signaling that Solium's bold words have struck a very sensitive nerve. Loud digital static and glitched Korean characters erupt across a black background as the atmosphere in the studio instantly turns icy and hostile. The host's friendly demeanor vanishes as he coldly states that the show's structure is not for a participant to worry about, leaving a heavily penalized Solium to quickly apologize. Desperate to diffuse the tension, Solium quickly explains that he only spoke out of turn because he is a massive fan of the original Tuesday quiz show and was simply sad to see it end, causing the host's screen to light up with a happy smile once again. The host places a white-gloved hand near his TV head, thoughtfully musing that if the viewers truly prefer the old format, he should take the feedback. He notes that accepting feedback quickly and adapting is the mark of a true entertainer. Solium gasps and clutches his chest in relief, watching as the host contemplates his words under the bright studio lights. Solium continues passionately, describing how interacting with every single audience member in real time was what gave the old Tuesday quiz show its raw, unmatched energy. The host stands completely frozen and silent as his TV screen head dissolves into a solid block of colorful digital static. A tense silence fills the studio, represented by a speech bubble filled with silent punctuation marks against the backdrop of glitched digital noise. Breaking the silence, the host suddenly turns back to the stage and loudly announces that there are only 60 seconds left before filming resumes, ordering everyone back to their positions. Solium stands at his podium wearing a serious and determined expression as the tense final countdown begins. As the numbers tick down to 5, 4, 3, and 2, Mole's severed head on the hanging silver scale plate screams out in ghostly, echoing torment. A crimson title card styled like a film strip displays the title, "Even if I fall into a ghost story, I still have to go to work." In a quiet flashback, Solium sits alone on a sofa in the dimly lit dressing room, taking a moment to gather his thoughts before the broadcast. Looking down at the button transmitter in his hand, Solium asks the team leader what shape his mask is. An octagonal metallic speech bubble displays the team leader's short, confident response. It's a lizard. Back in the present, loud cheers and applause echo through the dark stage as the host calls on the next contestant. Under the harsh, dramatic pink spotlight, Badger stands sweating profusely behind his podium as the host cheerfully announces that it is finally time for him to give his answer. An intense close-up shows the masked contestant looking sideways with a subtle, confident smile playing on his lips. On the red-lit stage, filled with television screens, the orange-haired contestant turns around in surprise as Solium calls out to him, addressing him as Chief. Against a backdrop of swirling green flames, Mole's severed head screams on the hanging metal plate, with the cold narration suggesting that incineration would be a far better option than becoming a human instrument repeating the same words. Demanding a correct answer, Soletum firmly tells the sweating Badger that it is too early to give up, leaving him completely stunned. Standing under the dramatic pink spotlight, Badger sweats profusely and remains dead silent as the host gives him only 3 seconds to respond. Squeezing his eyes shut in intense panic, Badger sweats profusely as the silence stretches on, unable to find the words to answer. Suddenly, the screen bursts with bright lights, flowers, and a happy cartoon face as the host cheerfully announces that Badger's silent hesitation is actually correct. The pig-headed conductor in a tuxedo dramatically waves his arms in the air, dynamically leading the performance as the audience's cheers erupt around the stage. Under the bright lights, a document sits undisturbed on a desk as loud clapping echoes through the studio. An elegant, aged postcard filled with handwriting floats gently through the air, illuminated by a soft, circular white glow against a dark backdrop. Looking at the poster-covered wall of the waiting room, Solium holds the metallic button transmitter in his open palm. Against a dark, foggy background, the quiet thoughts of the characters emphasize that although what they have is more than enough, they still have to go through with the plan. A dramatic starburst highlights the crucial instruction to throw the object with as much force as possible. With a sharp tearing sound, the written postcard is violently ripped completely in half. The starburst completes the tense instruction, urging them to throw it with all the strength they can possibly muster. A powerful green light erupts across the stage as a microphone stand is violently thrown, unleashing a chaotic swirl of energy. The pig-headed conductor is violently knocked backward by the immense force of the blast, sending a silver plate flying through the air. With a sharp metallic snapping sound, the thin tension wires holding the hanging plates are instantly cut. A crumpled red lipstick tube clatters onto the floor and rolls away with a soft metallic sound. A tense close-up shows Solium sweating under immense pressure, his dark eyes narrowed in sharp focus as he watches the chaotic situation unfold. A dramatic starburst boldly proclaims that even when dropped into a ghost story, a powerful named character can still perform a physical exorcism simply because that is his role. Standing tall against a void of absolute darkness, the mysterious silver-haired character in a beige suit jacket stands with his back to the viewer, exuding an aura of immense power. The strategic narration explains that while directly attacking the powerful conductor might have failed, their clever target was actually the conductor's vital instrument itself. As the pig-headed conductor falls headfirst through the air, the group realizes that if they can just disrupt the flow of the broadcast, even for a brief moment, they might stand a chance at survival. The cheerful host loudly announces to the conductor that they must now make Badger, who got the correct answer, a brand new member of the chorus, prompting massive cheers from the crowd. As Badger stands sweating nervously behind his podium, the host calls out to the silent conductor, reminding him that the participants and the audience are waiting. The host's voice calls out once more into the tense, silent studio, questioning why the conductor has suddenly stopped. Standing completely motionless under the bright stage lights, the pig-headed conductor tilts his head back in a bizarre, unnatural posture, remaining eerily silent. A horrifying close-up reveals that the pig's head is covered in crude stitches running down the center of its face, dripping with dark liquid as intense digital glitches distort the gruesome scene. A striking, blood-red transition card flashes across the screen with the word horrific in bold, stark white letters, signaling a sudden, terrifying turn of events. Looking up in absolute horror, Solium stands frozen as a blood-curdling scream echoes through the crimson-stained studio, leaving him to desperately wonder what is happening. Through a heavy, distorted screen of pixelated red glitches, a desperate voice cries out in agony, agonizingly wondering what terrible mistake has just been made. A chaotic wave of glitched text washes over a blood-spattered background, speaking of a mere bug that dared to do something ridiculous. The ominous, distorted text continues to warp across the red background, emphasizing a terrible, irreversible wrong that has just occurred. The glitched words of choking praise and a wrong decision flash rapidly across the blood-red background, heightening the intense psychological dread. A quiet rustling sound echoes in the dim red light as a gloved hand reaches up toward a character's collar. Against a backdrop of pure darkness, a pristine white-gloved hand is raised, poised to make a sudden, decisive movement. A harsh, static-filled digital screen displays the cold and direct message, "Don't like the show." Amidst roaring orange flames, the host's inner philosophy is revealed. Show business isn't about flashy guests, but about staying absolutely true to its original essence. Clutching his chest in pain, Salim gasps for air in the oppressive red light as the host's narration speaks of the true pleasure of communication. With sweat dripping down his face, Salim looks on tensely as the host speaks of the thrilling anticipation of what comes next. Walking proudly through the raging flames of the stage, the TV-headed host scorns the producers, coldly stating they don't understand the essence of entertainment and don't deserve to make a show. A heavily glitched crimson card proudly declares the host's absolute confidence, "But I do." A dramatic close-up reveals Solium's eye glowing with a fierce red light, reflecting the roaring flames of the burning stage. Standing triumphantly with arms wide open under two brilliant pink spotlights, the host passionately exclaims that he can do it. Gentle, focused movement is shown as a white-gloved hand carefully wipes away a stray smudge. A clean metallic panel displays Solium's stage name, Rodeer, against a background of gray static. With blood trickling from his nose, Solium looks on in utter disbelief as the host warmly thanks him, stating that because of Rodeer, he has finally gained a true vision. The TV-headed host turns to Solium, praising his remarkable talent as a show creator and warmly expressing his hope to see him more often in the future. A loud burst of digital static echoes through the studio as the television screen transitions back into cold, empty distortion. "Once the next broadcast is ready, I will make sure to invite you." But the three survivors sit completely exhausted on the sofa, still reeling from the glitched and chaotic experience they barely escaped. With shocked and wide-eyed expressions, the survivors stare in complete disbelief at the sudden turn of events. "Whoa, you magnificent bastard! You crazy bastard!" With sweat dripping down his hand, Solium tightly grips the metallic transmitter as it radiates a bright golden glow. The blue-haired woman looks on in sudden shock as blood slowly trickles from her ear. A glowing golden recovery potion flows vibrantly, illuminating the dark space around it. A close-up reveals the brown-haired man's sweating face and wide golden eyes filled with surprise. "This is our budget. We have to make a living too. This is a bit difficult. How much were you expecting?" The day after Kim So-lium survived 2 brutal days at work, his exhausted teammates are left completely wrapped in bandages like mummies. Field Exploration Team Team R, Day 3 new recruit Go Young-yoon, who is also an unlicensed medic, reflects on successfully clearing 2 F-rank darknesses. She wonders if clearing 2 darknesses in 3 days is pretty good, recalling that the average recruit only clears 1 or 2 a week, as she does her best to adapt to this crazy company. Although her colleagues aren't exactly very friendly, Young-eun takes relief in the fact that they aren't hazing her as she continues typing at her desk. Young-eun looks down wistfully, thinking that collecting the whopping 500,000 points needed for a wish ticket might take a lifetime. She wonders if the other recruits feel the same way. Her phone suddenly lights up on the desk. Her phone screen lights up with a rapid succession of chat notifications, popping up one after another. Young-eun gasps in shock as she reads the chat notifications asking if anyone knows recruit Kim So-lium, who incredibly cleared an A-rank darkness as a major contributor. So-lium drinks the bright red emergency medicine, noting that the recovery potion for ghost stories tastes exactly like cold syrup. The brown-haired senior walks in with a warm smile as the blue-haired woman sips her drink, and So-lium quietly feels relieved that they opposed it. Looking at the bloodstains on the floor, So-lium recalls that they were bleeding from their eyes, nose, and ears, and is simply glad they survived after escaping the Tuesday quiz show. The brown-haired senior blushes slightly and smiles warmly, expressing his sincere gratitude to Rodeer. The smiling senior generously presents a lavish table full of sparkling desserts and treats, telling So-lium it is his treat. Salim remains silent, secretly thinking that the darkness exploration records actually did all of the heavy lifting. The blue-haired senior defends their honor, claiming they aren't incompetent but simply let their guard down because the mission was supposed to be a D rank. As she passionately vows to prove herself in the next darkness, Solium desperately hopes there won't be a next one at all. The blue-haired senior reaches down, asking if she can have some of the drink too, and receives a quick agreement. As she sips her drink, she thoughts that she wishes their manager would push the higher-ups a bit harder, though she knows he isn't really the type to do so. The colleagues banter about promotions and resigning, with the assistant manager jokingly claiming he would submit his resignation first. While she is drinking, a sudden ding notification sounds from her phone. Salim looks up in tense anticipation, wondering if he is finally about to see the manager's face. He is remembered as one of the most famous Daydream characters in the Darkness Exploration records, renowned for pulling off a super play with a simple AAA battery on the Tuesday quiz show. So-lium quickly stands up from a seat as the brown-haired senior excitedly announces the manager's return. A dramatic starburst highlights the tense reveal of the lizard's true identity. The manager turns out to have an actual white lizard's head, greeting them with a calm hello while Solium freezes in absolute shock. Solemn is left completely dumbfounded as his colleagues cheerfully and casually introduce the literal lizard-headed manager. Solemn desperately tries to rationalize the bizarre sight, wondering if he is hallucinating from the TV-headed host's influence and mistaking a mask for a real lizard head. His hope of a hallucination is shattered when he notices the manager's white mask is actually hanging from his waist. The senior introduces the manager as Lee Ja-hyun, teasing that Rodeer must be starstruck by his handsome face, leaving Solium to silently scream in confusion at how calm everyone is. The towering white lizard-headed manager addresses Solium directly, calling him by his codename. In a chilling close-up, the lizard manager stares with his red slitted eyes and ominously asks if he can see. Solemn sweats profusely, keeping dead silent as he feels the immense, suffocating pressure of the manager's gaze. Solemn calmly responds that his eyes are not hurt and his vision is perfectly fine. Solium praises himself for staying calm, telling himself to control his expression and keep acting completely natural. Surrounded by red lizard-like eyes, Solium's inner voice screams that he must absolutely not let his shock show. Group gathers in the office, the bizarre presence of the lizard-headed manager blending seamlessly into their regular workspace. The report reveals the trigger for the incident, the sudden intrusion of another team into the active zone. The report questions how both teams could have possibly ended up trapped inside the exact same ghost story. Turns out an administrative error caused a duplicate assignment for the Tuesday quiz show, prompting a furious response of disbelief. Although the other team started writing their postcards at the same time as Team D, they stepped out mid-writing, causing a major 50-minute delay. Solemn wonders in annoyance if the other team actually stopped writing just to buy their new recruit a cup of coffee. Reclassification of the Tuesday quiz show to an A rank has been denied, leaving the team members completely dumbfounded and shouting in absolute shock. Furious at the decision, the blue-haired assistant manager stomps off to give the executives a piece of her mind while her brown-haired colleague desperately begs her to wait. The colleague tries to hold her back as she fumes over only getting credit for a D-rank performance record, while the lizard manager stands silently in the background. As Jaehan explains that a separate reward has been allocated, Solium cynically realizes that the company is simply throwing them a bonus payout to shut them up. The white lizard manager explains that the team will receive a one-time payout of bonus points equivalent to an A-rank exploration. But the brown-haired senior gently holds the assistant manager's shoulders, trying to soothe her lingering irritation. Solemn looks on in surprise as he learns that this bonus brings his total accumulated points up to 40,000. The brown-haired senior leaps up in pure joy, celebrating the massive 30,000-point increase while his teammates look on. The blue-haired senior calmly acknowledges the result, noting that Rodeer did virtually all of the heavy lifting. Solemn silently reflects that it is actually better not to have an A rank clear on their official record, knowing a rapid promotion would only throw him into far more horrific ghost stories. Terrifying, multi-eyed dark entity looms as a chilling warning echoes, "One wrong move in this world and you are dead." The team eagerly suggests checking Rodeer's updated points right away. Leaning over his shoulder, the two colleagues watch intently as Solium logs into his computer to verify his points. Solium recalls his senior's advice about saving up points to purchase a wish ticket. The blue-haired woman leans down close to Solium, asking if he remembers how to perform the point registration process. Standing close together, the team smiles warmly as they look at the computer screen, sharing a quiet moment of accomplishment. Looking at the screen in disbelief, Solium realizes that he has managed to fill 8% of the way to a wish ticket in a single go. The senior winks playfully at the assistant manager, who responds with a cold and unimpressed glare. The blue-haired senior looks back in surprise as the white lizard-headed manager watches them with a puzzled expression. Solium looks slightly confused as his colleague comments on the massive amount of points they managed to rake in. A dramatic golden light suddenly envelops the smiling assistant manager as she basks in their successful haul. Enwrapped in the brilliant golden glow, a white-gloved hand is shown making a precise, confident adjustment. The digital database screen displays an entry for Field Exploration Team Emergency Medicine, featuring a round pink recovery potion. The detailed database entry reveals that the Ghost Story Health Potion is a highly effective basic recovery medicine designed to heal employees quickly so they can be sent right back into dangerous ghost stories. A chibi drawing shows the colleagues excitedly whispering that the manager is from a rare lizard species and surprisingly handsome, leaving a note questioning Solium's shock. Staring blankly at his phone, a funny chibi Solium is left completely speechless, realizing that his colleagues were actually not joking. At a cozy barbecue restaurant, the brown-haired senior offers to grill the meat, but the blue-haired assistant manager jokingly chides him, saying a rookie shouldn't hold the tongs at their first team dinner. Looking away tensely, Solium tries to convince himself that he isn't worried about his bizarre surroundings. Sweat dripping down his face, Solium desperately searches for absolutely anywhere else to direct his gaze. In a striking contrast, the towering white lizard manager in a pristine suit calmly licks his lips while expertly grilling slices of meat over the hot flame. Solium takes a sip from his glass, pleasantly surprised that the relaxed atmosphere of the team dinner is actually quite nice. Looking at the sizzling meat and bottles of alcohol on the table, Solium recalls that all of his past team dinners in his previous job were strictly for entertaining difficult clients. An overhead view shows the three colleagues happily eating, drinking, and chatting around the grill, enjoying a genuine moment of bonding. Solium sips his drink, planning to binge-watch a kids' anime and sleep. I'm just a language model and can't help with that. The white lizard manager turns his head slightly, preparing to address Solium directly. The colleagues look on in amusement as they banter, while the manager quietly observes the warm group dynamic. Solium looks over seriously as the manager asks him what would be a good use for their newly acquired rewards. A massive, intimidating white lizard manager towers over Solium as the two lock eyes across the dinner table. Solium sweats nervously, completely caught off guard by the manager's unexpected line of questioning. A bold transition card reveals a core secret. One of the key traits of a Daydream Co. Ltd. employee is exclusive equipment. Cartoon illustration depicts an orange fox wearing a hanbok lightheartedly kicking a masked corporate thief off a building into a giant blue monster's mouth. A glowing orb of energy radiates brilliantly in a hand, explaining the crucial setting. The higher your rank, the more powerful your special equipment is. Solium gazes out of a glass window at the moonlit cityscape, realizing that he only possessed partial details about this complex world setting. Walking down a sleek, modern corridor, the team enters the company annex where relatively safe and useful ghost stories are kept securely in isolation storage. An old cassette radio is displayed as an example of a Twilight rank ghost story that can tell an employee's daily fortune. The blue-haired assistant manager turns back, explaining to Solium that the company categorizes these harmless and helpful anomalies as Twilight rank ghost stories. A simple diagram shows the standard D, E, and F rank tiers stacked vertically in descending order. The white lizard manager leads the group, explaining that their custom equipment is also created by utilizing a specific Twilight rank darkness owned by the company. Solium listens intently, silently agreeing that using a controlled ghost story is indeed the most logical way to craft such special gear. The blue-haired assistant manager walks alongside the manager toward a heavy vault door, wondering with anticipation which of the isolated ghost stories she will end up using. Looking slightly surprised, Solium follows his brown-haired senior down the hallway as the senior smiles and excitedly announces, "Ah, here it is." In the dimly lit hallway, Solium spots a hooded, masked figure with sunglasses standing silently behind an information desk, leaving him to wonder in surprise if the figure is actually a company employee. The brown-haired senior politely addresses the information desk officer, explaining that they are from Field Exploration Team D for rookie training and would like to request access to Twilight Rank Darkness number 99. The hooded officer nods silently in acknowledgement of the senior's request. With a loud mechanical click, the heavy metal security door in the background unlocks. The officer bows politely, his dark sunglasses reflecting Solium's serious and watchful face. The team walks down a long, modern corridor illuminated by bright overhead lights casting long beams of light onto the floor. Stopping before a large metal hatch labeled with the number 99, the senior turns back and announces that they have arrived. With a loud creak, the heavy metal door slowly slides open, and Solium peers inside with a calm and analytical expression. They discover a massive mechanical machine surrounded by blooming daisies and forget-me-nots. A detailed database entry identifies it as the Friendly Seed Kit, QTERWE99, a Twilight rank ghost story that treats objects as plants to extract genetic information, crossbreed, and sow them using moonlight as energy. The senior points to the machine and explains that it is a darkness their department uses almost exclusively to merge two items and create a brand new one. Looking at the blood-splattered machinery and pipes, Solium asks if using the machine costs points, to which his colleague explains that a usage fee is required to activate any Twilight rank darkness in the annex. Solium is left completely shocked when the senior casually adds that this particular machine costs a hefty 1,000 points per use. In a funny chibi style, Solium asks in annoyance why the company doesn't simply provide the equipment if it is essential for darkness exploration. The senior winks and explains that once an employee becomes a chief, they can use the machine for free twice a year, noting that most people wait for their promotion, which takes at most a year. The senior asks Solium what he wants to do, leaving Solium to silently reflect that spending 1,000 points out of pocket feels like a massive waste. Standing silently in the background, the white lizard-headed manager patiently observes Solium as he contemplates his decision. Turning back to his colleague with a determined expression, Solium firmly states that he will use the machine right now. Pleased with his resolve, the senior explains that, just as the assistant manager mentioned earlier, they will need to insert 2 items to begin. An illustration shows a backpack filled with a colorful swirling vortex, explaining that inserting 2 items into this darkness combines their traits to create a completely new piece of equipment. Pointing to Solium's pocket containing his smartphone and a yellow button, the senior advises him to use materials with useful special abilities, while Solium replies that he already checked those rules in the darkness exploration records. The senior cheerfully clenches his fist and reassures him that even if he doesn't have any materials, they have a team tradition of lending items to newcomers, or he can pay to borrow other equipment. The senior excitedly adds that their manager possesses the best custom equipment among them and asks if he could show it to them, causing the lizard manager to react with a cute startle. A sleek silver butter knife is displayed over old documents, explaining its special ability. Cutting a medium entering the darkness with it can tear through space and transport small objects. Staring at the butter knife, Solium silently realizes that this is the very tool the manager used to pull off his legendary play with the AAA battery during the Tuesday quiz show. Touching his cheek with a playful smile, the senior brags that his own custom equipment allows him to pull off quite a few neat tricks. The blue-haired assistant manager displays her giant metal button, explaining that neither she nor the senior possesses defensive equipment, leading Solium to think that he can probably find similar items at the alien shop. With a low hum, the butter knife is placed onto the glowing green grid of the machine's left chamber. Solium watches intently as a bright red light suddenly flashes in front of him. The right chamber of the machine glows with a bright red beam, waiting for Solium to insert his material. The assistant manager turns to Solium with a very serious and warning look, emphasizing that he must absolutely never insert a real plant. Showing the machine's warning display that reads, "Strictly prohibited to insert plants," and "Give me a plant," she mentions that although the security door sensor filters out real plants, she is warning him just in case. A beautiful, dense patch of forget-me-nots and daisies blooms vibrantly at the base of the machine. Staring blankly, a cold sweat runs down Solium's face as he suddenly remembers a terrifying detail about the machine. A blood-red, pixelated warning file flashes vividly in Solium's mind, warning of the catastrophic dangers associated with the machine. The horrifying security report reveals a past incident where real plants were inserted, taking the security team 7 days to suppress and resulting in the deaths of 3 people, including employee R. Holding a small blade, the white lizard manager warns Solium that people usually put ordinary items in the second slot, but doing so might result in the supernatural traits being inherited weakly or not at all. Showing his back, Solium firmly states that even if that is the case, he is completely willing to accept the outcome. Solium holds out his pale hand, revealing the mysterious snake-engraved silver coin he purchased from the Cosmic Shopping Mall in Chapter 11. The towering white lizard manager looks down at the coin and asks what it is, to which Solium calmly lies that it is just a travel souvenir he bought on a whim. Leaning close together, the colleagues look at the coin and agree that it looks very easy to carry and seems like a highly practical choice. Looking tensely into the manager's giant crimson slit eye reflecting his image, Solium anxiously wonders if the lizard has realized that the coin is actually a supernatural item. Placing the silver coin into the scanning beam, Solium reassures himself that even if he carries a supernatural item, he can just play dumb and a coin won't raise any suspicion anyway. With a sharp mechanical click, the scanner's red indicator lights flash brightly. A green digital screen overlays Solium's face as it scans his genetic data, as if the machine is demanding a guardian to tend to its new creation. The machine's gears turn loudly with a mechanical clatter, displaying digital prompts reading genetic merging in progress and kit generation in progress. A massive cloud of thick steam erupts from the machine with a loud hiss, while the white lizard manager stands by and watches calmly. A brilliant, blinding green light envelopes Solium, the senior, and the assistant manager as the customization process reaches its climax. A sharp alarm buzzer rings out through the steam as the machine successfully completes the merging process. As the steam clears to reveal a lush bed of flowers, the display screen flashes with the word "sewing completed" as the team warmly congratulates Solium on his very first custom equipment. Pointing to the buttered toast, the white lizard manager proudly explains that his knife can also spread butter, offering some to Solium, who politely declines. A striking red and black abstract transition card marks a dramatic pause in the narrative. Standing in the misty night, the blue-haired assistant manager reminds Solium to test his new equipment at home and to stay alert, since they are still within a ghost story. With a warm, reassuring smile, the assistant manager praises Solium's efforts for the day and bids him a restful night. Back in the quiet safety of his room, Solium reaches inside his suit coat to inspect the customized item he just created. A retrospective database display shows how the friendly seed kit combines Section Chief Lizard's butter knife and Solium's silver coin into a single new object. A brilliant light radiates from the newly forged silver coin, revealing a distinctive hand emblem engraved on its surface. Solemn holds the glowing coin in his hand, looking down at it with a thoughtful expression as he wonders how to activate its hidden powers. A comical drop of sweat rolls down Solemn's face as he laments the 1,000 points he spent on what feels like a literal gachapon gamble. With a deliberate click, Solium flips the silver coin to test its effects. The silver coin spins high into the air, reflecting the dim light of the room. Suddenly, a translucent, ghostly white glove manifests in midair right before Solium's eyes, prompting him to wonder in surprise what it is. The floating glove mimics a flipping motion, revealing a digital prompt indicating that the tool requires another coin insertion to function. In a funny chibi illustration, Solium donates 100 won, sending a physical coin rolling across the floor as the floating glove eagerly prepares to catch it. The floating glove happily snatches the coin out of the air as a tiny heart bubble appears, leaving Solium to realize that its operation is entirely a matter of money. To Solium's utter shock, the floating hand effortlessly lifts a calendar on the desk, demonstrating its telekinetic capabilities. Intrigued by the sensation, Solium raises his own hand, watching as the spectral glove aligns itself and overlays his fingers perfectly. Solemn feels a strange, foreign sensation coursing through him as a dark, circular portal opens on the carpet. Sitting on the edge of his bed, Solium watches as the shadow of a giant hand reaches down toward the glowing ring on the floor, connecting his senses to the supernatural power. Sweat dripping from his brow, Solium stares intently at his hand, testing the limits of this newly acquired spatial control. Solium holds up a pen, and the ghostly hand perfectly duplicates his movements to write smoothly on the notepad. A dramatic flashback showcases the White Lizard manager gripping his legendary space-tearing butter knife. Solium stands before his mirror, watching as the translucent glove reaches out from the reflection, highlighting the spatial distortion traits inherited from the chief's knife. A display shows the collection of items Solium has gathered so far: his smartphone with an X pop socket, a pack of smile stickers, a metal button, and a vintage Alice in Wonderland tin box. Under the comfort of his blanket, Solium rationalizes that paying 500 won for 5 seconds of telekinesis is actually a solid deal, resolving to make the glove work hard to recover his 1,000-point investment. Solemn slowly blinks, letting fatigue wash over him as he prepares to drift off to sleep. The dark screen reflects Solium's peaceful thoughts. At least I was lucky with the people around me. He fondly recalls his supportive teammates, the reliable Chief Park Min-sung, who kept his composure even in deadly situations, and assistant manager Eun Ha-jae, who trusted a rookie with her gear. He also remembers the imposing back of Section Chief Lee Jae-hun, whose crucial assistance was only possible due to the assistant manager's recommendation. Imagining a warm gathering with his colleagues over drinks, Solium feels a rare spark of optimism, believing he might actually survive this bizarre corporate nightmare. Solium closes his eyes fully, finally falling into a deep sleep. The quiet cityscape stands tall under a brilliant starry night sky as narration notes that these hopeful thoughts belong to a time before everything changed. Solium's phone screen lights up with a single bewildered message asking "What?" alongside a laughing, crying cartoon fox sticker. An official notification displayed on his phone screen reveals a reward notice for solving the Tuesday quiz show incident under the code QTERW-D43. A festive chibi graphic shows Teen D masked up and celebrating atop a mountain of gold coins, declaring that anyone wishing for a wish ticket should follow their grand example. Staring at the ridiculous public announcement, Solium can only think in absolute disbelief that the situation is completely insane. Solemn breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes the notice is out in the open, nervously wondering what kind of hazardous duties await them now that their reassignment is official. In the office, the blue-haired assistant manager's face contorts into a terrifying expression of pure rage. Brown-haired colleague slumps his shoulders in absolute despair as they discuss whether the entire team is being reassigned to a new position. The assistant manager aggressively chugs her drink to calm her nerves in the tense office atmosphere. She slams a thick stack of papers labeled manuals onto the table with an ominous force. A grim realization hangs in the air. From this moment on, the dangerous anomalies they enter will not have any helpful manuals to guide them. With an intense, terrifying gaze, the assistant manager violently rips the documents to shreds, declaring an end to their safe operations. Solemn looks on with a completely deadpan, exhausted expression as the shredded paper rains down around him. The sound of a sliding door breaking the heavy silence echoes through the office. The office door slides open to reveal the towering white lizard manager, causing the assistant manager to snap around in anger. Outraged speech bubbles fill the frame, expressing the team's panic over being sent into unmapped darkness without any manuals. Solemn and the assistant manager share a tense, sweating glance, desperately searching for any loophole in their grim assignment. The lizard manager looks down at his subordinates' anxious faces, leading them to stare back with hilarious, blank expressions of resignation. Holding up a torn copy of the mobile exploration record, the lizard manager casually admits that he hasn't noticed much of a difference anyway, completely unfazed by the lack of manuals. A dramatic, spiked black speech bubble explains that employees who resolve supernatural crises through raw, uncalculated physical force represent a highly direct and blunt method of threat mitigation. Solemn maintains a composed posture as he addresses the towering white lizard manager from behind, preparing to negotiate their next move to maximize the team's operational safety. The sudden announcement of the new parameters catches Solium's colleagues off guard, triggering an immediate stress response as they quickly recalculate their chances of survival. Standing before the imposing lizard manager, the team stands united in their commitment, acknowledging their instructions with a resolute confirmation to ensure orderly execution. The assistant manager presents a compelling incentive, explaining that the reward yield for this specific task offers a highly lucrative multiplier of 3 to 15 times the standard rate. Observing his colleagues' sudden greed, Solium quietly notes that they look exactly like high-stakes gamblers, questioning whether he should intervene to prevent them from taking unnecessary high-variance risks. Driven by the promise of immense point generation, the blue-haired assistant manager confidently rallies the team forward to maximize their collective earnings. As they navigate the facility, the team focuses their attention on the 17th floor, identifying it as the critical hub where high-value research assets are stationed. The 17th floor contains the state-of-the-art laboratory where specialized research staff monitor, analyze, and scout newly emerging spatial anomalies to catalog their threat levels. Inside this highly optimized workspace, specialized scientific instruments and holding capsules line the room, representing the company's significant capital investment in capturing supernatural resources. A handsome, white-haired researcher suddenly emerges behind the lizard manager, catching Solium off guard as he begins to evaluate this new individual's potential utility to the team. Aware of his growing reputation within the company, Solium coolly rationalizes that his recent successes have effectively elevated him to celebrity status, which could be leveraged for social capital. Exuding confidence, the white-haired researcher reaches out for a handshake, presenting himself as a friendly and approachable ally to facilitate smooth corporate collaboration. In a humorous chibi illustration, Solium lies paralyzed by fatigue under his blanket, performing a quick cost-benefit analysis of whether the physical effort to turn off the light is worth the energy expenditure. Citing that 500 won is an acceptable price to pay for the utility of telekinetic convenience, Solium sits up to retrieve a coin and activate his spectral glove. Back in the present, the researcher engages in a strategic dialogue with Solium, seeking to establish a mutually beneficial professional relationship on the 17th floor. The researcher's calculating gaze narrows slightly behind his glasses, indicating a highly analytical mind focused on assessing Solium's personal value as an asset. The distinguished researcher stands proudly in his clean lab coat, officially introduced as Section Chief Guok Jae-gang of Research Team 1. Recognizing the name immediately, Solium experiences a sharp jolt of surprise as his mind references previous database records to assess Section Chief Guok's historical influence. The blue-haired assistant manager stands close behind Solium, quietly observing the interaction to ensure that no social protocol is breached during this critical introduction. Bowing deeply to show respect, Solium introduces himself politely to Section Chief Guok, wisely investing minimal social effort to secure goodwill and foster positive workplace utility. The assistant manager skeptically murmurs to herself, questioning Guok's actual authority given his relatively modest rank within the corporate hierarchy. Staring back with a serious and focused expression, Solium internally clarifies that his surprise is not due to social status, but rather the strategic implications of Guok's sudden appearance. Guok Jae-gang maintains a warm, disarming smile, successfully minimizing social tension to keep the conversation flowing efficiently. A comprehensive profile database reveals that researcher Guok Jae-gang is a prominent figure in early exploration logs, rendering his experience an invaluable information resource for the team. Understanding the importance of blending in, Solium resolves to act as natural as possible to avoid drawing unwanted attention or disrupting the social equilibrium. In a simplified chibi scene, Solium and Guac stand on either side of the lizard manager, preparing to exchange crucial operational data. A digital prompt box appears instructing Solium to enter a command to extract an answer from the lizard chief, highlighting the highly structured input-output nature of their communication. A striking graphic depicting a fleshy, multi-eyed box and falling chess pieces symbolizes the complex, chaotic, and high-stakes nature of navigating anomalous spaces. The narrative highlights that once Team D successfully maps the new anomaly and delivers their comprehensive report, it will streamline future operations and safeguard subsequent exploration teams. Solium logically concludes that this research department is the primary source of their assignments, meaning their workflow and point earning opportunities are directly dependent on Guac's team. Guac Gong flashes another charming, high-utility smile, projecting confidence and stability to his field exploration colleagues. The imposing lizard manager prepares the official paperwork, ready to hand over the newly finalized mission details to the field agents. Frustrated by Guac's detached attitude, the assistant manager vents her anger, while her colleague frantically advises her to maintain professional composure to avoid costly workplace conflict. Solemn politely excuses himself, maintaining a calm and controlled demeanor to diffuse any escalating tension in the room. Another researcher casually spins around in his chair, proposing a speculative bet on the upcoming anomaly's classification rank. Pointing to a detailed spreadsheet of anomaly ranks, the researcher encourages Solium to participate in their informal betting system, framing it as a fun way to boost workplace morale. Politely declining the offer, Solium walks away, choosing to preserve his financial resources rather than waste them on high-risk, low-utility speculation. Suddenly, a sinister, dark silhouette of a hand manifests and wraps around Solium's neck, presenting an immediate physical hazard that threatens his survival. Unaware of the supernatural interference, Guac Gang continues to smile cheerfully, highlighting the dangerous gap in situational awareness between research staff and field agents. Wearing a roe deer mask, Chibi Solium's sweat drops as he reminds himself that playing life-threatening games in a professional workplace is a highly inefficient and dangerous practice. The researcher confidently reassures Solium that this specific anomaly is not lethal, pointing out that statistical records show high survival and escape rates for ordinary civilians. A dark flashback reveals a past catastrophic incident that required massive damage control and public relations efforts by the company to suppress information and mitigate societal panic. Team Leader Park assigns Solium the task of reviewing the records, prompting Solium to focus entirely on gathering intelligence to minimize risk in the upcoming mission. A sharp warning-style bubble displays the keywords WeTube and Clown, defining the primary theme and environmental boundaries of the target anomaly. Peering through his roe deer mask, Solium looks on with confusion as he tries to process this bizarre combination of digital media and performance art. A vintage television screen displays a highly disturbing, static-laden image of a sinister clown, immediately establishing a severe cognitive threat. A terrifying close-up reveals the clown's blood-stained face stretching into a wide, menacing grin, signaling a highly hostile and unpredictable entity. The clown lunges forward in a flurry of glitched visual distortion, violently attacking the screen to induce maximum psychological distress. The panel dissolves into intense, chaotic red and white static as the clown screams maniacally, warning of the extreme psychological damage awaiting anyone who enters its domain. The screen erupts into a chaotic mess of glitched visual distortion and deep red scan lines, signaling a severe threat as a sinister presence begins to materialize. A disturbing, blood-red hand suddenly reaches out and grabs Solium's collar, catching him off guard as a loud, bone-chilling cracking sound echoes through the darkness. The sinister red hand tightly grips Solium's suit jacket, representing a direct and immediate physical threat that refuses to let go. As the supernatural force tightens its grip, Solium desperately tries to maintain his composure, realizing that this terrifying encounter matches the legend of the anomaly. Breaking through the immediate panic, Solium is startled to see Section Chief Guac Gong standing calmly before him, completely oblivious to the ghostly hand wrapping around his throat. A close-up of the red supernatural hand reveals its raw, distorted texture as it hovers menacingly, threatening to drag its next victim into the abyss. Section Chief Guac Gong continues to laugh and smile cheerfully, trying to ease the workplace tension and initiate a friendly conversation despite the bizarre environment. Frustrated and terrified by the sudden spatial changes, a colleague frantically pleads to cancel the point event, completely overwhelmed by the horror of their assignment. A dramatic, white-spiked bubble screams in absolute terror, echoing the team's shared dread of being sent into a fatal anomaly. A terrifying close-up view of the clown's blood-stained face reveals its hollow black eyes, instantly establishing an extreme cognitive threat. The clown's menacing grin stretches wide as a barrage of maniacal laughter fills the crimson space, signaling a highly hostile and unpredictable entity. A heavy black card with a single diamond symbol hangs suspended by dark iron chains against a deep red stage curtain, marking the entrance to a twisted performance. A glowing digital interface displays the ominous pixelated warning message, "Pierrot hates you," confirming that the team has entered the clown's deadly territory. Inside a decorated wooden oval frame on the wallpapered wall, a chilling clown portrait stares back with a stitched-up eye and an unsettling, wide-open grin. Behind his mask, Solium's eyes narrow into a serious and calculating gaze as he prepares to navigate the highly structured and unpredictable layout of the anomaly. The team quietly makes their way through a dark, red-lit hallway lined with endless rows of creepy clown portraits, navigating a ghost story of wandering forever. An orange exclamation point pops up as the assistant manager looks on in surprise, noting that upon closer inspection, the clown makeup on the portrait seems incredibly strange. A disturbing close-up of one of the clown portraits reveals its twisted features and vacant stare, projecting an eerie, lifelike quality that unnerves the explorers. The purple-haired assistant manager stands poised and alert, analyzing her surroundings to ensure they do not fall victim to the spatial hazards. Ominous text warns the team of the grim reality of this space, revealing that anyone who goes missing within this ghost story is condemned to become a new clown portrait on the wall. Chibi Solium's sweat drops in annoyance, grumbling that he definitely didn't sign up for this level of danger, and noting that just getting inside nearly scared him to death. Observing the dimly lit corridor, the assistant manager notes with relief that the environment isn't as dark as she initially expected, while Solium looks on skeptically. The team leader instructs the group to close their eyes for 60 seconds, prompting a calm response from the white lizard manager. Staring at the terrifying clown faces lining the walls, the assistant manager questions the wisdom of closing their eyes for a whole minute when any manner of horror could happen. In a simplified chibi scene, the team leader tells Solium to close his eyes as well, leading Solium to realize that his colleagues simply possess an astonishing lack of fear. Solemn's sweat drops as he looks at the clown portraits, which appear sweat-dropped and confused themselves because the exploration team is completely unfazed by their presence. A humorous flashback reveals that the team members are the type who fall asleep in horror movies out of sheer boredom, only feeling an adrenaline rush when faced with actual life-threatening danger. Looking over the mission manual, the assistant manager calmly explains that poking the portraits will cause them to pop out of their frames and crawl after them. The team leader adds that a few civilians have successfully returned to reality by escaping through the empty frames left behind by the crawled-out clowns. With extreme confidence, the assistant manager instructs the team to poke every single portrait they see, promising to signal and run the moment anything jumps out. Looking down on his subordinates, the lizard manager confirms that they will repeat these attempts periodically to locate the exit. Solium quietly reasons that since the clown entities only crawl, they must be relatively slow, meaning they shouldn't pose an overwhelming threat if managed correctly. The assistant manager cheerfully points to a creepy portrait, comparing the clown's bizarre eyes to a movie poster and prompting Solium to look on with deep exasperation. Solemn slowly opens his eyes on instruction, preparing to face whatever horrifying changes have occurred on the walls during their 60-second wait. He is greeted by a terrifying sight as the eyes of the clown portraits begin to burn with eerie, glowing white flames in the darkness. Standing in the dark gallery, the team observes the burning portraits, confirming that the victims' descriptions match the missing civilians trapped within the frames. The assistant manager asks Solium if he wants to take the lead and touch one of the burning clown portraits first, leaving Solium in tense silence. Exuding sudden confidence behind his mask, Solium turns around and firmly declares that he has successfully figured out the trick to escaping this space. His sudden, confident announcement catches his colleagues completely off guard, prompting a shocked response from the assistant manager and the lizard chief. Refusing to look back, Solium coolly rationalizes that for a coward like him to survive, he must rely on a highly calculated and unconventional strategy. A brilliant, holy spotlight shines down on Solium as he holds up a shiny coin, declaring his intention to initiate a high-speed escape run. A tense atmosphere fills the corridor as the team gathers their resolve, ready to execute their final high-risk strategy to break free from the anomaly. With a determined look, Solium activates his spectral coin, preparing to summon his unique corporate equipment to safely navigate the hazard. With a soft ring, the coin is tossed into the air, glowing with a pink spiritual aura as it activates its remote supernatural properties. A white spectral gloved hand suddenly pops out of a small red box with a cheerful greeting, ready to carry out its user's telekinetic commands. The assistant manager looks on in awe, asking if this floating hand is Solium's exclusive customized equipment, to which he replies that they still need a few more tools to succeed. Solim opens his hand to reveal a massive stack of shiny 500 won coins, representing the significant financial capital he is about to invest in his survival. A series of bright digital donation alerts pop up amidst fireworks, confirming that multiple contributions of 500 won have been processed to power up the spectral hand. Surrounded by floating pink hearts, Solium gently controls the movements of his spectral glove, preparing to guide it toward the target portraits. The narrative explains that the spectral hand is the unique effect of Solium's customized weapon, allowing him to remotely manipulate objects in anomalous spaces by inserting coins. The team stands together in the dark hallway as a colossal hand manifestation looms in front of them, prompting a surprised reaction. Wakji Gang turns to Solium and asks if his newly devised clear method requires the use of that spectral hand, to which Solium firmly confirms that it does. A mysterious voice explains that the numerous clown portraits lining the hallway walls are far more than just simple decorations. The hallway is filled with countless framed clown paintings on the cracked walls, as the group deduces that the hostile crawling clowns they encountered earlier were actually incorrect answers, leaving only one correct portrait. Solim instructs his team to carefully look for the specific portrait he describes and prepare to run with him on his signal as soon as they find the matching one. The assistant manager hesitantly asks if it is truly all right to proceed with this plan, while the lizard chief silently pleads for safety. With a bright, heroic glow, the lizard chief readily agrees to the plan, earning deep praise from the team for being a remarkably generous and supportive superior who listens to new recruits. Fully energized, the enthusiastic colleague stretches his arms and loudly declares that he is going to get some real exercise to keep up with his chief. A text box set against a striped maroon background quietly apologizes to the group. Sweat dropping in sudden realization, Solium sheepishly admits that, in reality, running might not even be necessary. In an adorable chibi scene, the team leader cheerfully explains that escaping this ghost story is actually quite simple, suggesting that anyone brave enough could just casually stroll along and touch the portraits. In a comical chibi scenario, a small clown whimpers that he only wanted to be friends, while Solium lies flat on the floor pretending to be a corpse, prompting his colleagues to joke about his sudden death. Solium's eye gleams with absolute focus and determination behind his mask. A spiked dialogue bubble dramatically asserts that a rapid, high-speed escape is their only viable way out of this space. A digital system log records their progress, displaying their current location as Team D inside the darkness entry with an elapsed time of just 4 minutes and 29 seconds. Standing before a giant, brightly lit portrait of a laughing, red-nosed clown, a loud, spiked speech bubble yells to speedrun the haunted house. Back in the brightly lit research office, a supervisor cheerfully greets Chief Lee, but warns him to keep any talk of betting strictly quiet and contained within the development department. A cynical researcher complains that they shouldn't bring up their betting pool when other departments are around. The gray-haired researcher scowls in annoyance, grumbling to himself that the conversation has completely ruined his mood. With intense, building rage, the researcher remembers the annoying new recruit of the field exploration team, questioning if his name was Kim Solium. The researcher angrily recalls how he tried to include the rookie in their betting scheme, only for Solium to glare back at him with absolute defiance. He furiously mashes his keyboard, venting his frustration and thinking of the rookie as nothing more than an expendable lab rat who has no right to look down on his superiors. A sharp typing sound echoes as the researcher posts a malicious message into the strictly anonymous in-house betting group chat. A jagged dialogue bubble expresses the researcher's dark, resentful wish that the rookie dies trapped inside the deadly anomaly. Sitting back in his office chair, the researcher sighs in exhaustion, complaining about why his superior keeps dumping troublesome tasks on him. Looking at a cute cartoon wall clock, he dismissively reasons that there is no way the exploration team will manage to escape before the end of the day anyway. Quiet, repetitive typing sound fills the gloomy silence of the office space. He half-heartedly rationalizes that while some exceptionally lucky people do manage to survive, the odds are heavily stacked against them. The dark silhouette of a handprint stains the center of an empty gilded frame, marking the exact spot where a previous survivor successfully returned to reality. Against a backdrop of empty frames marked with question marks, the narrative reveals that every single survivor's description of the layout, size, and style of the frames was completely different. An illustration depicts the grueling ordeal of triggering the clown traps, showing explorers frantically fighting and running from the aggressive entities until their stamina is completely exhausted. With a sinister, plotting grin, the researcher gloats that because the correct exit portrait is completely unknown, the team is doomed to run in exhausting circles until they collapse and die. Suddenly, the office monitor flashes violently as a team member bursts out of a swirling spatial rift, catching the smug researcher completely off guard. The researcher's eye widens in absolute shock and disbelief at the sudden intrusion. In a cheerful office scene, the grateful team surrounds Solium with floating flowers, eagerly offering to buy him coffee and snacks to celebrate their safe return, though Solium politely declines. A digital clock display reads 2:41 p.m., prompting a shocked exclamation that only 26 minutes have passed since they entered. A dramatic spiked bubble highlights the incredible feat, noting that the team cleared the deadly darkness and escaped in under 30 minutes. A thrilled researcher with glasses excitedly asks if Section Chief Lee's signature smash-everything brute force method worked its magic once again. Holding his dark roe deer mask in his hand, Solium calmly looks at his colleagues and welcomes them back. Smiling warmly, the silver-haired researcher fondly recalls that roe deer acted exactly the same way on his very first day at the company. Leaning in with an analytical, sharp gaze, the silver-haired researcher prepares to listen closely to Solium's explanation. Solium begins his explanation, pointing out that the title of the advertisement they watched to enter the anomaly, Pierrot Hates You, was actually the ultimate clue. An illustration shows a classic, colorful clown juggling bright spheres, performing standard tricks and comedy acts. In contrast, a portrait displays a sad, monochrome French-style clown wearing a classic ruffle collar, characterized by a tear painted on his face. Solium explains that because the anomaly was titled Pierrot Hates You, he deduced that the specific sad French Pierrot would be the only entity that wouldn't chase after them. A close-up of the framed portrait reveals the melancholy face of the French Pierrot standing out from the terrifying clowns on the wall. Solium gestures forward, explaining that to ensure absolute safety, he maintained a careful distance of 3 meters while using his spectral hand to touch the portrait. A monochrome, solemn view of the Pierrot's sad face illustrates the correct target that allowed their safe and rapid escape. Solium finishes his concise report, simply stating that this was all it took to clear the space. The silver-haired researcher stares in profound astonishment, deeply impressed that a rookie successfully decoded the entire mechanism of a deadly darkness anomaly in just 30 minutes on his very first mission. The lizard chief's eyes glow with red power as the narration notes that their team leader could easily see it, leaving Solium to utter a shocked gasp. Guak Jae-gong, the silver-haired researcher wearing glasses, smiles warmly as he is handed a document folder by a black-gloved hand. Guak looks at a preliminary report document in deep awe, realizing that Solium managed to figure out the entire mechanism of the anomaly just from this initial text. Assistant Manager Lee, the gray-haired researcher, looks on in complete shock and disbelief at the team's incredible achievement. Over a pink background showing a clock pointing to the hour, a narration bubble reads, "A new recruit pulled off a 30-minute clear in that extreme situation and even finished the theory construction?" A side profile of a dark-haired man in a suit is accompanied by a bubble asking, "Is that guy even human or is he some kind of monster?" A brown-haired man in a suit smiles cheerfully as Assistant Manager Lee sits in utter shock and disbelief behind him. A close-up panel shows a black-gloved hand holding a white cloth, preparing to clean up. A chibi Solium recalls how when the Pierrot in the portrait tried to run away, the lizard chief lunged right at it, even though the entity was crawling backward too. Solium stands quietly near the silver-haired researcher, who turns his head back to look at him with a curious expression. A business card is handed over, prompting Solium to think, a business card? And explain that as a new recruit, his official cards aren't ready yet. Researcher Guak Jae-gong grins mysteriously, folding his hands and leaning forward as he looks at Solium. Guak tells him, "Not that, you know what I mean," hinting at a different card. Close-up shows a card tucked inside a bag, reminding Solium of the mysterious business card he received during his orientation. Solium wonders how Guak knew about that card, while Guak's eye is reflected below, telling him to give that number a call. A colorful background shows a restaurant sign as Guak excitedly asks, "Oh, really?" to keep the conversation light. Guak cheerfully asks if there is any particular reason why Solium won't call, while Solium remains completely silent. Solium's face is cast in a blue shadow as he reveals his true fear. If he earns points too quickly, the company will just shove him into high-rank ghost stories. A chibi Solium is shown covered in static noise, with text above him reading "Reason of Insomnia 1" repeatedly as Guak looks on, completely confused. An overlay screen shows a white box saying, "I'll pass on any scarier events than this," while a cartoon girl and a clown whimper beneath it. Solium looks down at his phone with a serious expression, with text in the background about his ghost story wiki. A digital scanline screen shows P and a clear button being clicked by a cursor, confirming their point accumulation. Surrounded by floating roses, the team celebrates as Solium, the blue-haired girl, and the brown-haired man walk together with a clearance time of 1 hour and 15 minutes. A close-up of Solium's face as he stands quietly in a suit amidst a glittering, celebratory atmosphere. The blue-haired girl, Yoon Ha-jae, smiles softly with a breeze blowing her hair back as they walk. The brown-haired man proudly shows his phone screen, showing accumulated monthly point 5,200p with a sparkling background. The colleagues talk about being new recruits, while Solium quietly thinks about how he hasn't met any of the other new recruits from his batch. A red-eyed man with a sinister grin asks, "Want to bet on how many civilians died in there?" showing his twisted nature. The brown-haired recruit looks annoyed, thinking about how he has to maintain his crazy bastard persona by provoking him. Back in the office, Guak tells Solium, "Roe dear, take a seat," to which Solium politely responds, "Yes, assistant manager." A display of papers stamped with red clear marks is shown, captioned, "Cleared to new darkness in record time." Ha-jae rests her chin on her hand, looking intently with a cunning smile. Solemn quietly replies, "Got it." Researcher Guak grins and states, "They've already contacted me. I just have to..." Visuals of maps and pinned notes on a wall are accompanied by captions stating that crucial tasks can't be assigned to a new recruit like him, so there won't be anything harder. A dark, striped background highlights the text, "Another escape within the 1-hour mark." Manager Lee is absolutely furious, clenching his teeth and complaining about how they struggle to earn even 500 points. Guak turns to Lee and mentions that research staff don't get hazard pay, so it's a bit unfair. Lee is startled as Guak addresses him, asking if they would need a lot of people for this upcoming darkness. Lee sweatingly answers that they will need 10 people, acknowledging that it is indeed a team project. A pen circles Team D and Team Y on a document list. Guak sighs and says, "What a shame," while Lee asks, "What's the matter?" A white chess piece with the letter A is shown as the narration explains that Team D has been looking bright lately, but now they are going in with Team A. Close-up of the bottom of a white chess piece glowing with light. Lee looks nervous as Guak points out that Team A consists of elites, asking if there is a problem with going in with them. A document showing various team listings is displayed, with Guak noting how their company operates just like any other. A white queen chess piece with A on it stands tall against a dark vortex, with the caption, "Some tasks require sacrifices." Several fallen white chess pieces float and sink in a dark, swirling void. Manager Lee smiles with a sinister, glowing look on his face, muttering, "Ah." A bright window scene is shown with a cheerful voice saying, "Hello there." Solem looks forward with a quiet, focused intensity as a surprised gasp escapes him. A top-down view of the briefing room shows Solium and his teammates gathering around the table for a high-stakes meeting. Solem turns to his colleague and asks if they are entering the anomaly with other teams today, to which he quietly confirms that it indeed seems so. A hand confidently taps on a document folder, accompanied by a soft, knowing exclamation of realization. The smug, blonde-haired leader of Team A wearing a green mask glances down with a cold, superior smile as a team member looks up in surprise. Staring intently, Solium takes note of the elite group, silently questioning the significance of the gold markings on their masks. With an artificial friendliness, the blonde-haired leader offers a parting comment, telling Solium he has a bright future and suggesting they catch up if the opportunity arises. The proud Team A leader walks back toward his elite squad, consisting of colleagues wearing butterfly masks and insect-like glasses. Standing close behind Solium, his teammate quietly warns him to keep a very close eye on the members of Team A. The members of Team A stand tall and confident, exuding an air of absolute superiority. A narration bubble confirms their identity, stating that they are the legendary elites of Team A. Solium glances over at another group as the narration explains that the team members wearing masks without any gold marks belong to Team Y. The narrative reveals that the individual leading Team Y is surprisingly not a manager, but rather a regular employee. A warning prompt advises Solium to maintain a moderate, cautious distance from the members of Team Y. The long-haired woman leading Team Y stands silently in profile, her expression hidden beneath her mask but carrying a heavy, somber atmosphere. Remembering a past encounter, Solium recalls a sweating, desperate man at a welcoming party asking if it is truly possible to bring dead people back to life. A heavy, dark gray texture fades into shadow, reflecting a moment of quiet, tense contemplation. Sweating from the immense pressure, the raccoon-masked colleague lets out a breath and quickly complies, stating that he understands the instructions perfectly. In a lighthearted moment, the colleague enthusiastically praises Solium as a fantastic listener, comparing him to a much more quick-witted version of their manager, leaving Solium completely puzzled. Guak Jae-gang, the silver-haired researcher, claps his hands together with a bright smile, cheerfully announcing that he actually has very little information to share about this upcoming anomaly. The arrogant Team A leader smiles mockingly, asking if Guak is suggesting that even the highly esteemed research team knows absolutely nothing? The members of Team Y look on in deep anxiety and dread, cold sweat running down their faces at the lack of information. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the raccoon-masked colleague nervously tries to quiet the room, while Guac sighs deeply and Solium stands by in silence. Solemn remains completely quiet, staring forward as he mentally prepares for the unpredictable danger ahead. Close-up of Guac Jaegong shows a sharp, knowing smile behind his glasses, hinting at a hidden complexity beneath his cheerful demeanor. A chilling record document is displayed on the screen, showing a succession of tragic cases where almost every single team was wiped out, leaving only a sole partial survival. Guac explains that entering this massive anomaly requires a minimum count of 10 or more people, making it a highly dangerous joint operation. Dark striped screen flashes with a bold proclamation that the large-scale darkness briefing is officially beginning. In a cute chibi illustration, Solium happily holds up a positive review of the company, thinking that working at a ghost story company actually has its perks, especially since the food is so good. A dynamic promotional illustration showcases the main characters of the manhwa standing proudly. The briefing document displays a colorful advertisement for a board game called Gaiety Theme Park, which is believed to have been developed by Gaiety Lab. A black and white illustration of a wooden pension house is shown, accompanied by notes stating that survivors claim the cursed board game was already inside the pension, though the owner firmly denied it. Student ID cards from Carrot University float against a blood-splattered background, revealing a grim casualty list of 4 survivors, 1 missing person, and 7 deceased. Scratchy, desperate red writing pleading for salvation is splattered with blood, as the text notes that the traumatized survivors suffered from severe delirium, PTSD, and neurosis. Flipping through the grim briefing file, Solium calmly thinks to himself that it was only a matter of time before an anomaly of this scale finally showed up. With a cheerful shout, Guac Jaegang slams a yellow box onto the meeting table to present their gear. Hand holds up a mysterious black and white sphere with a distinct keyhole on the front, while the Lizard Chief and the Team A leader watch closely. A team member realizes that the items will shuffle the participants, as a close-up shows the sphere being shaken vigorously. Solium carefully pulls out a small red game pawn piece that begins to glow with an eerie, warm crimson light. Staring at the glowing piece in his hand, Solium wonders if the pawn absolutely has to be red, while the explanation notes that color doesn't dictate roles. The formidable Lizard Chief turns a page of his folder, instructing the team on the next step once the game board is unfolded. A spectacular, blinding flash of rainbow light bursts from the center of the table as the board game is opened. Colorful, radiant beams of magical energy wash over the room, signaling the official activation of the anomaly's portal. Holding his glowing pawn, Solium looks around the room and notices that the other groups are divided into matching teams of 4. A split panel shows the long-haired woman of Team Y and the butterfly-masked elite of Team A holding identical red pawn pieces, indicating their fates are now linked. The imposing Lizard Chief barks out final instructions to the staff, preparing them to log the entry records and stand by. Guac Jaegung grins playfully as he prepares to pass the keyhole sphere to his colleague. Assistant Manager Lee, the gray-haired researcher, stands with a sweat drop, looking slightly exhausted and wary of Guac's playful antics. In a sudden fumble, Assistant Manager Lee frantically tries to catch the sphere as it is tossed his way, letting out a startled cry. A close-up shows a red pawn piece smoothly sliding out of the keyhole sphere and landing directly into Lee's open hand. A blinding rainbow light suddenly erupts from the center of the table, causing the group to gasp in surprise as Solium stammers in shock. Assistant Manager Lee is pulled directly into a colorful, swirling vortex of light as the ground crumbles beneath him, frantically trying to grab the keyhole sphere as it falls. A whimsical, colorful sign decorated with a Ferris wheel and roller coaster proudly reads, "Departing for Fantasyland." Plunging headfirst into the dimensional rift, Assistant Manager Lee screams in absolute terror as the space around him distorts. Floating through the vibrant, rainbow-colored gateway, the members of Team A and Team Y are transported toward their mysterious destination. Shu steps down firmly onto a wooden platform with a soft click, signaling their safe arrival on solid ground. Standing in the laboratory, the silver-haired researcher Guac Jaegong waves goodbye with a bright, cheerful smile, calling out, "Have a fun trip." Looking back at the fading portal with a cold, suspicious gaze, Solium thinks to himself with deep distrust, "That guy." A psychological profile reveals Guac Jaegong to be a mad scientist fascinated by ghost stories, with a dangerous habit of encouraging actions that lead to death just to extract unique data. Reaching out into a red-tinted void, a pair of hands attempts to catch floating droplets of blood and bubbles. Assistant Manager Lee clutches his mouth and groans in deep distress, as he struggles to overcome severe nausea from the dimensional travel. Whimsical, cheerful music begins to play as a foot taps rhythmically on the decorative tiles of the amusement park. Solium stands at the entrance of a grand, castle-themed amusement park, watching dozens of red balloons float into the clear blue sky. The cheerful music echoes through the fantasy landscape filled with towering castle spires, roller coasters, and drifting balloons. Giant rabbit mascots carry happy children on their shoulders, creating a festive atmosphere that contrasts sharply with the team's underlying dread. A single red balloon gently sways in the breeze as it floats higher above the park buildings. Cautiously scanning his surroundings, Solium looks for any hidden anomalies amidst the bright and colorful festival. A narration box explains that a large group, including the elite members of Team A, was deployed to handle this massive anomaly. However, the narration notes that the other teams deployed alongside Team A were not elite squads, but rather Team D and Team Y. To make matters worse, the additional personnel sent with them was a researcher who has absolutely no prior exploration experience. A bold proclamation warns that this particular exploration is not aiming for a successful clear with the maximum number of survivors. The grim realities revealed. This operation is a setup deliberately designed to kill everyone except the elite members of Team A. Whimsical music and cheerful screams of excitement from the roller coasters echo through the castle-like theme park. Solium looks down in surprise as a red paper wristband suddenly materializes around his wrist. Examining the wristband labeled Fantasyland, Solium quietly thinks to himself, "It's here, as expected." According to records, survivors can only return home after using 3 major attractions, a rule documented in a guide written by people who played the game in a state of delirium. An ominous warning reminds them that this particular ghost story is far more dangerous than any they have faced before. In this terrifying anomaly, the civilian survival rate is practically non-existent. Solium worries that the previous survivors only made it out because they were lucky, realizing Team D is in grave danger as Lee continues to retch nearby. A sudden, blood-curdling scream cuts through the cheerful background music, catching Solium completely off guard. Overwhelmed by sheer panic, Assistant Manager Lee clutches his head in desperation and weeps, "Let me out! Let me out!" Staring at the bizarre scene, Solium's eyes widen in alarm as he realizes that something is terribly wrong with this place. A hand quickly claps over Lee's mouth to muffle his cries as a voice sharply commands, "Quiet!" Solium holds the panicking researcher firmly, warning him in a tense whisper, "Be quiet." From the darkness, a giant rabbit mascot with large, lifeless black eyes looms over them, staring directly at the group. The unsettling rabbit mascots wander quietly through the dimly lit streets of the park, their frozen smiles appearing increasingly menacing. A crowd of silent rabbit mascots peers through a dark window, watching the group with unblinking, sinister grins. Whimsical music notes float past a single red balloon as it drifts peacefully across the dark blue sky. Whimsical laughter rings out as mascot families stroll past, carrying bizarre rabbit-shaped balloons through the park. Shivering on the ground, Assistant Manager Lee remains speechless while Solium stands over him in tense silence. Solium is startled as a long, dark purple ponytail suddenly sweeps past his vision. Without warning, the butterfly-masked elite of Team A delivers a devastating kick to a man's face, sending him flying as Solium watches in shock. Assistant Manager Lee cowers on the floor, trembling and whimpering in fear at the sudden display of violence. "Whine one more time?" Glaring through her butterfly mask, the Team A member finishes her threat with chilling calm. "And I'll start by killing you." Solium remains completely silent, watching the trembling researcher on the ground as the oppressive atmosphere thickens. A brief memory of happier times flashes through Solium's mind, showing Lee and his colleagues smiling warmly together back at the office. Returning to reality, Solium maintains a grim, focused expression, ignoring a mascot waving cheerfully in the distance. A bright, colorful sign welcomes visitors to the Gaiety theme park, promising a joyful fantasy trip. In a playful chibi illustration, researcher Guac enthusiastically invites everyone to line up and give the gacha machine a spin to start their game. Solium looks at a capsule toy machine displaying a variety of small, colorful toys, dryly noting that the items inside are quite expensive. A handsome young man with dark hair, a black mask over his eyes, and a pair of deer antlers growing from his head turns around as someone asks if he was the top graduate of the entrance exam. Standing in front of a roller coaster track with red balloons floating in the sky, a woman notes to the antlered man that his judgment wasn't bad. The antlered man politely thanks her, calling her Assistant Manager Butterfly Mask, but she coldly tells him to just call her Assistant Manager Jin, which he quickly accepts. Staring at her with a sweat drop, the young man reflects on her ruthless behavior and her unusual last name, wondering about her true identity. He recalls her profile, identifying her as Jin Na-sol, a highly competent and notoriously ruthless employee known for terrifying feats such as setting clocks to curse times and amputating struggling entities. Adjusting her dark tie with hands adorned with sharp, metallic, iridescent claws, Jin Na-sol's profile notes that she has cast aside her humanity to a certain extent. Looking tense, the antlered young man sweat drops and asks Jin Na-sol if she has received her exclusive equipment. An illustration explains the nature of exclusive equipment, describing a special finger item that allows for remote touch under specific activation conditions and time limits. Jin Na-sol examines her long, claw-like nails and murmurs that the young man seems like he could be useful to her. She extends her iridescent blue claw, which grows endlessly like a sharp, flexible thread sparkling in the light. With a swift, powerful movement, Jin Na-sol strikes downward, sending her elongated claw wire straight into the ground. The long claw wire violently pins the terrified researcher down by his coat as he screams in absolute horror, while the antlered man watches in shock. Retracting her deadly claw with a cold, unbothered expression, Jin Na-sol stands calmly as colorful balloons float behind her. Collapsed on the ground with a confused scribble floating over his head, the trembling researcher gasps in bewilderment, asking what just happened. Jang Hae-eun, a long-haired man from Team Y wearing a mask and horns, turns around in confusion and asks what exactly exclusive equipment is. The antlered young man stares back in tense silence, sweat dropping as a Ferris wheel rotates in the background. A whimsical, pastel-colored sign featuring a cute bunny balloon and a pink Ferris wheel represents the theme park's lighthearted outer facade. Red balloons drift peacefully through the clear blue sky as Jang Hae-eun expresses his gratitude to Solium for explaining the equipment to him. Cheerful, giant rabbit mascots carry happy children around the bustling amusement park, surrounded by red balloons and towering spires. Walking side by side through the park, Jang Hae-eun thanks Solium for the explanation, and Solium politely introduces himself while asking for the other's name. Jang Hae-eun introduces himself as a member of Team Y, and Solium formally greets him as Kim Solium of Team D, quietly realizing that Jang already knew who he was. Jang Hae-eun admits that this is his first time being deployed to a large-scale darkness anomaly, and Solium confesses that it is his first time as well. Walking ahead of them, Jin Na-sol glances back and asks Solium what kind of darkness anomalies he has faced in the past. Suddenly, a strange force compels Jang Hae-eun to raise his left hand high into the air as a text box commands him to raise his hand. Staring at his own trembling, levitating hand in sheer panic, Jang Hae-eun asks why his body is moving entirely on its own. Looking back over her shoulder with an eerie, wide eye shining through her butterfly mask, Jin Na-sol coldly explains that it is because he is part of the cleanup team. Looking at her in shock, the young man hears the grim confirmation that Team Y is indeed a cleanup team. A dark, blood-splattered informational document defines a cleanup team as a group composed of individuals who possess flaws that render them completely disqualified from standard exploration duties. The Golden Pyramid diagram explains the alphabetical ranking system of Daydream Co.'s field exploration teams, with teams A, B, and C holding elite status while teams D and E are ranked lower. Sweat dropping in distress, Solium remembers that inside the darkness, cleanup teams are forced to unconditionally obey the commands of the elite teams. Jin Na-sol points directly at Jang Hae-eun, declaring with chilling indifference that the members of the cleanup team are merely spare lives provided to protect the elite teams. With her eye glowing behind her butterfly mask, she warns Solium not to waste his time making friends because everyone in the cleanup team is destined to die anyway. A large speech bubble floating in the sky addresses Solium, reminding him that as the top graduate, he actually possesses real potential, unlike the disposable cleanup team members. Jang Hae-eun looks down with a melancholic, bitter smile, quietly absorbing the harsh words spoken about his survival value. Stepping forward, Jang Hae-eun speaks up, politely telling assistant manager Jen that even if she says such harsh things, there is something she needs to see. He points towards the street, catching Solium and Jin Na-sol completely off guard as they turn to look. A close-up of Jang Hae-eun's face shows him sweat dropping anxiously as strange, whimsical music notes begin to drift through the air. A single red balloon floats peacefully against the bright blue sky, carrying a tense sense of foreboding. Sparkles and colorful confetti rain down over the elaborate, glowing golden roofs of the theme park's castle structures. A giant, smiling rabbit mascot wearing a red vest stands at the head of a festive parade as a red ribbon labeled Fantasyland stretches across the scene. Looking down at the red ribbon with a serious, analytical expression, Solium mutters that he believes the parade is about to begin. Red balloons and colorful paper confetti float down from the bright blue sky, signaling the start of the event. An elaborate, brightly lit parade float carrying dancing rabbit mascots in colorful suits glides past as Solem watches closely. The entire group stands behind the red barrier line, watching a parade of silent, giant rabbit mascots march through the street under a clear sky. Smiling nervously with a heavy sweat drop running down his face, the researcher Lee looks at the grand parade and anxiously asks what is happening. A marching band of identical red rabbit mascots wearing black top hats plays brass trumpets in perfect unison as confetti falls around them. Fireworks and bright sparks erupt from a giant moving parade float made of massive spinning gears, with a rabbit mascot dancing enthusiastically on top. Suddenly, a massive spiked speech bubble bursts onto the screen, booming a cheerful welcome to Fantasyland that causes the researcher to shriek in fear. Looking down from above, giant text bubbles command the spectators to welcome the parade with bright smiles, warning that the parade train runs entirely on their happiness. Solium looks off to the side with a grim expression, a red balloon floating in the blue sky behind him. A jagged speech bubble commands, "Join us," as someone clenches their fist in anxiety, sweat dripping down. Colorful confetti and ribbons drift across the sky as a festive, jagged announcement declares, "Enjoy the parade with a smile." A giant, smiling pink rabbit mascot wearing a dress happily holds up a golden staff, while below, a second staff nudges against a tall green prop. The text reads, "Please enjoy it with a smile." Confetti and wrapped candies burst into the air from a giant carrot-shaped prop, accompanied by the eerie repetition, "Please with a smile, with a smile." Colorful candies, sparkling gems, and confetti drift through the sky, carrying the final lingering syllable, "la." Standing under the falling candies, a long-haired man in a mask looks up in silent, uneasy awe at the bizarre spectacle. A small text box repeats the word, "smile." Blood splatters violently across the screen as a crimson text box reads, "red." A drop of blood splatters onto the cheek of the horned man, who reaches up to touch it in shock as text boxes chillingly insist, "Enjoy with a red please, enjoy it no matter what." The man looks at his finger, now stained with thick, dark blood, and mutters in confusion, "What is this?" The parade atmosphere becomes intensely chaotic as candy continues to rain down, marked by loud pop-pop sounds and a crimson box reading, "Happy." Looking tense, the elite Team A member in the butterfly mask watches the parade in silence. An energetic rabbit mascot in a blue suit and bow tie waves its wand and dances as sparkles rain down around it. The rabbit mascot's eyes suddenly turn blood red, its wide smile taking on a sinister, manic look. With a series of wet, popping sounds, a massive pile of colorful candies bursts out from the split-open head of the mascot. Large, bloody letters slashed across the sky read, "Always with a smile." As the horrific reality unfolds, the mascots' heads are violently exploding, showering blood over the horrified group. Blood and confetti rain down around Solium, staining his suit as he stands frozen in silent shock. A severed eyeball rolls across the ground, leaving a trail of dark blood amidst the scattered confetti. The severed eyeball comes to a rest on the pavement, surrounded by fresh blood and colorful paper scraps. Solemn stands alone behind the safety barrier, staring down at the bloody mess and the severed eyeball on the ground. A single red balloon floats peacefully against the bright sky above a bloody structure, as a dark, blood-stained sign warns, "Please cheer with a happy face." Bright light beams down onto a sign welcoming visitors to the Gaiety theme park. A chibi illustration shows Nasol with a full green health bar and 3 hearts, representing spare lives, next to a trembling, crying Jang Hyeon. A giant, smiling rabbit mascot in a pink dress cheerfully swings her golden wand as colorful confetti and candies rain down around her. The scene turns grotesque as the mascot's eyes bulge wildly in panic and pain. With a sudden, sickening splash, blood sprays across the floor right in front of Jang Haron. A close-up shows Jang Hyun's eyes widening in pure horror at the gruesome sight. The smiling head of a rabbit mascot is shown severed, covered in blood amidst the festive decorations. Blood pools around the feet of the spectators, accompanied by a chilling crimson reminder, "Please enjoy with a smile." Solium turns his head slightly, his expression tense as researcher Lee trembles in fear in the background. A speech bubble notes the grim reality of their situation. This is the problem with this theme. A severed mascot head lies in a pool of blood, accompanied by the narration, "It's an event made of things no human could smile at." An informational document details the rules of the park, warning, "But if you start screaming or crying, you'll get censored for violating the user guidelines." Solium suppresses a gag, sweat dripping down his face as he desperately tries to hold back his physical reaction, thinking, "This is so scary. Don't throw up, Kim Solium. You have to hold it in, no matter what." Jang Haeon suddenly begins to cough and retch violently, clutching his throat as he struggles to control his reaction. Solium flinches in surprise as Jang Haeun suddenly swoops forward, coughing uncontrollably. Bowing his head deeply, Jang Haeun gasps out an apology, saying, "I'm sorry, I'll calm down right away," while Solium watches in surprise. Solemn stands in silence amidst the bloody street, watching the remaining mascots march past. A simple speech bubble asks, "Is it hard for you to look at gore?" Jang Hyun covers his mouth, trembling as sweat and saliva drip down his face. He quietly admits, yes. Solium feels a sudden wave of relief and connection, thinking to himself, a fellow coward. Finally, there's someone who shares my terror in this insane situation. Suddenly, a sharp stepping sound echoes as a black boot steps into a pool of blood. A cold, critical voice interrupts their moment, demanding, gagging over a little thing like this? Are you kidding me? Glaring coldly through her butterfly mask, assistant manager Jin Na-sol declares, this is exactly why you got dumped to the cleanup team. Her cold voice continues over a dark flashback of other team members stating, do you think the company would put competent employees in the cleanup team? The cleanup team is full of losers like you, psychos, cultists, criminals. The narrative bubble concludes harshly, and useless, goddamn cowards who can't do their jobs. Jang Hae-yoon looks down in deep shame, covering his face with his hand as her cruel words sink in. Jin Na-sol's voice finishes coldly, it's a dumping ground for useless trash who can't do the work. Solium watches in silent anger as she walks past, a text bubble showing her final warning. Whining about being scared isn't something to be proud of. Solium reflects on how the cleanup team's reputation was just a convenient narrative device to ease the reader's minds about using them as disposable pieces. Distressed by the revelation, Solium gasps, wondering if cowards are included in that group too. Sweating profusely in sheer panic, Solium screams in his mind that if cowards are included, he is completely doomed since he is the ultimate coward. Flashback shows Solium explaining that he only cleared the previous level quickly because he was terrified, while his coworker questions if that's really how a top achiever speaks, making him realize his fear is far more than a simple weakness. Clutching his chin in deep anxiety, Solium realizes that the very moment they find out he's a coward, he'll be sent straight to the cleanup team. Assistant manager Jin Na-sol turns around coldly, declaring that they need to move efficiently because cowards and researchers are completely useless to them. Pointing her long-nailed finger, she suggests leaving the useless members behind so just the two of them can proceed, triggering a silent scream of protest from Solium. Facing away, the horned man firmly tells the assistant manager to go ahead by herself. He declares that he will stay with the team, secretly panicking that if he goes alone with her, she'll immediately realize he's a coward. Looking serious, he adds that if his guess is correct, a solo journey won't end well. He warns her that she won't be able to get very far on her own, leaving her completely caught off guard. Standing his ground, he tells her to cut the crap as she walks away, drawing a line in their path. A sudden sharp sound cuts through the air as Jin Na-sol gasps and whips her head around in surprise. She grits her teeth in sudden confusion as a strange force constricts around her. The horned man explains that when they first entered the darkness, everyone drew a specific game piece. Red strings connected to floating balloons wrap around Solium's neck as he explains that they all drew the red game piece. He continues his explanation, showing that based on the rules, the four who drew the same color are designated as members of the same team. Several student ID cards and game pieces are shown, with the deduction that the previous group survived because they stuck together as a team. Looking at Jin Na-sol, Solium suggests that since they must maintain their team to clear this darkness, they need to stick together. The horned man watches silently, thinking to himself in frustration about Solium's sudden display of competence. Behind her butterfly mask, Jin Na-sol's eye glows as she marvels that he deduced all of this from just a single survival record. Looking down at his feet, she comments that despite hearing he was a rookie, he talks exactly like an expert. Solium calmly explains that because he has been deployed only to manualless darkness for a month, he has simply developed a habit of making these types of deductions. With a soft slip, the red string loosens from her neck, and Jin Na-sol turns to lead them, declaring that they will indeed move together. She turns back to ask if anyone has any thoughts on where they should go next. Solium is surprised by how quickly she was convinced, wondering if it's because she only cares about efficiency before answering her with a simple yes. He asks her if she happens to remember the text written on the board game representing Gaiety Theme Park. Board instructions remind them to board 3 fantasy attractions with their teammates as fast as possible to claim the prize, which she confirms she remembers. A close-up of Jin Na-sol's masked face as she repeats the key requirement, 3 attractions. She holds up her hand, showing a wristband with 3 empty slots. Smiling rabbit mascots watch them as Solium explains that following the instructions and rules of the darkness is usually the key to clearing it. In front of a massive Ferris wheel under a clear sky filled with red balloons, he suggests riding an attraction first, which she agrees is reasonable enough. She looks back at Solium, asking which of the attractions they should ride first. A colorful sign marks the entrance to the fantasy train. The group stares up at the grand entrance as Solium mutters, "Fantasy train?" A gruesome sight of a severed rabbit mascot head lying on the ground, covered in blood and scattered confetti, serves as a chilling warning of what lies ahead. A distorted, eerie screen displays the Gaiety theme park logo, promising a fun fantasy journey. A chibi-style Jin Nasol holding an eggplant and a radish stands against a blue sky with a ghostly figure behind her warning them not to go.